City of Adelaide Council meeting on Tuesday, the 12th of October 2021. The Lord Mayor is in the chair. This council meeting will be streamed live and recorded for publishing to the internet. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that your presence at and any contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the council, including transferring outside of Australia.
Acknowledgement of country. Council acknowledges that we're meeting on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pays respects to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land, and acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. We also extend that respect to other Aboriginal groups and other First Nations who are present today. Acknowledgement of Colonel William Light. The Council acknowledges the vision of Colonel William Light in determining the site for the Adelaide and the design of the city with its 6 squares and surrounding belt of continuous parklands, which is recognised on the National Heritage List as one of the greatest examples of Australia's planning heritage.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon the works of the City of Adelaide. Direct and prosper its deliberations to the advancement of your glory and the true welfare of the people of this city. Amen.
Will all present stand in silence in memory of those who gave their lives in defence of their country at sea, on land and in the air? Thank you. Please be seated. Members, welcome and welcome back, Councillor Martin. At item number 5, apologies and leave of absence, we have none. I need the confirmation of the minutes. We have the minutes from the 10th of August and the 11th of August 2021, as well as the 14th of September 21. The 10th and 11th were deferred, awaiting answers to questions from Councillor Martin. They can now go through as a true and accurate record of those meetings. I'll look for someone to move the minutes. Is that a question, Councillor Martin?
I'm asking Lord Mayor if we can treat these items separately.
The minutes?
Yeah, they are for 3 meetings.
Okay. With leave of the chamber. So members, I need a show of hands if we want to take these separately. Thank you. Okay, members, I need a mover and a seconder for the minutes of the 10th of August 2021. Thank you, Councillor Abraham today. Seconder, Councillor Knoll. Any discussion? If not, to the mover to sum up. Members to the vote. Those in favour. Those against. That is carried. Councillor Martin. The minutes of the 11th of August 2021. I need a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Abraham. Seconder, Councillor Knoll. Any discussion? If not, back to the mover to sum up. Members to the vote. Those in favour. Those against. That is carried. And Councillor Moran, I'm sorry I didn't see your vote on that one. Thank you. Minutes of the 14th of September 2021. I need a mover and a seconder. Mover, thank you, Councillor Knoll. Seconder, Councillor Abraham today. Any discussion? If not, to the mover to sum up. Members to the vote. Those in favour. Those against. That is carried. Thank you. Members, we have 2 deputations this evening. The first deputation is from Professor Doug McAvoy, AM. repair and climate proofing of Victoria Park. Please come forward, Professor McAvoy. You have 5 minutes and you'll hear the bell go.
To the councillors and the senior staff. Thanks, yeah.
So, Professor, the bell will go at 4 minutes, so you've got a minute to finish speaking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for providing me with the opportunity to address Council today. I'm representing a group of citizens who have come together because of a shared concern for the future of Victoria Park, Buckabakandi, and we've called our group Reimagining Victoria Park. I'm here to inform councillors of a major threat to the public amenity of Victoria Park because of overheating in summer due to climate change and a lack of tree canopy, and to urge council to immediately begin planning to re-landscape and climate-proof the park by significantly extending the tree canopy to provide shade and by removing as many hard surfaces as is feasible. Victoria Park is the largest park in the National Heritage listed Adelaide Parklands, and it's considered by many to be the jewel in the parkland's crown. It has a rich heritage, both Indigenous and post-colonial, and is greatly loved and used by Adelaideans. For more than 150 years, the layout of the park has been significantly affected by horse and car racing. While the extreme edges of the park are heavily treed, to avoid obstructing the view of race spectators, very few trees have been planted in the park itself. As a result, there's virtually no tree canopy in the park. There's also a network of bitumen and concrete left by the former Adelaide 500 race, which acts as a heat sink. Now, as Council is aware, Adelaide is one of the world's hot cities and is experiencing increasing heat stress due to climate change. At the Kent Town weather station, which is very close to Victoria Park, for example, there was almost a doubling in the number of extremely hot days per year, that is greater than 40 degrees centigrade, in the 10-year period to 2018 compared with the previous 30 years. And that information comes from the Department of Environment and Water. Because of this upward trend in summer temperatures, a trend that will inevitably continue to increase at least for the next 20 years, Victoria Park is no longer fit for purpose in the summer months. Summer temperatures on Victoria Park are already very high. On hot days, people avoid going onto the park and huddle instead on the tree-covered shady cycle and walking path on the western fringe. This situation will only worsen. Summers will be hotter and longer, and rendering the park uninhabitable for weeks, possibly months on end, unless something is done. I invite you now to look at the satellite images you have in front of you. These graphically illustrate these interlocking problems of a lack of tree canopy and shade, hard surfaces in the northern section of the park, and summer overheating. The first picture that you have there illustrates two main things about Victoria Park. First, the park is large by comparison with most other parks in the garland of parks around the city. Second, there are very few trees in this extensive area compared with other land parks. Take a moment, if you will, to compare Victoria Park with the other parks north of Victoria Park through to Botanic Gardens and through to Botanic Park, and on the southern boundary of the city. The second picture, if you'll turn to that, is a surface heat map from March 2018, which has been superimposed on the previous image, picture 1. The surface heat map shows very little blue, that is cooler surface temperature on Victoria Park, compared with the other more heavily treed parks immediately to the north and southwest. Surface temperatures on this day were mostly in the range of 35 to 40 degrees. That's the yellow, with more extreme temperatures in the 40 degree plus range shown in red, where grasses were left to brown off in the southern section of the park and on bitumen surfaces. The final picture is an expanded view of Victoria Park. This illustrates how few trees there are in the park and shows the full imprint of bitumen and concrete left by the Adelaide 500 race. The area shown by the dashed red line is where the current wetland development is occurring. Now, this promises to be an outstanding development that will increase the public amenity of the park, help cool the park and increase biodiversity. However, this leaves 80% of the park without adequate canopy and shade and in need of repair. We urge the Council to make the climate proofing and repair of Victoria Park a very high priority in its planning. Trees require a lot of time to grow before they can provide any appreciable shade. The impending completion of the wetland development provides an ideal opportunity to take the next step to climate-proof the remainder of the park in a manner sympathetic to the new wetland, and in so doing substantially enhance the future amenity of the park for exercise, family recreation, learning, sporting and cultural events. Community engagement will be crucial, as will engagement with current stakeholders. Now, this may be time-consuming and challenging, and is why a start must be made now. If Council does not accept this challenge, there is every reason to believe that this iconic park will become unusable in summer within 10 to 15 years.
Thank you, Professor McAvoy. We have a second deputation this evening, which is Karen Kochigan. My apologies, Karen. The Head of Infrastructure and Assets for SAPOL, who is talking to item 10.7, the SAPOL Horse Adjustment at Benighton Park. Tuli Wadley. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for the opportunity to speak. I've attended tonight also in the presence of Assistant Commissioner Noel Bamford for the Security and Emergency Management Services, who has carriage of the mounted unit, which occupies the leased olive groves, which are the items under discussion. In relation to the vote that you have upcoming, there were 2 points that I requested to speak on behalf of SAPOL, which were items 2.11 and 2.12, which you'll see further along in the agenda, regarding the internal pen fencing and the ratio for horse occupancy within the SAPOL leased area the Council are considering today at the meeting. There are no issues with the other recommendations, but we did think it was worthwhile to speak on these 2 particular items. The leased parcel does provide critical green shaded space for the police horses, and the horses are a critical response function for safety and security of Adelaide City residents, workers and visitors from across South Australia as they visit the CBD. They provide security and safety response at major events and festivals, including the Fringe, Government, Parliament House, Adelaide Oval, soccer stadium events, and even the riots and protests that could have bearing on future incidents. The horses form part of our public order operations in the CBD, and they are deployed to Hindley Street at a minimum every Friday and Saturday night to ensure the safety of Adelaide visitors and residents. SAPOL notes the arborist report indicating the damage to the olive trees. Photographic evidence has also been provided to Council, however, of significant crowds of corellas that are seen to strip and damage the olive grove trees on a recurring basis, so we do note that it doesn't appear to solely be horse issues. The use of the green space provided by the olive groves for the horses is critical from a work health safety perspective in ensuring appropriate shaded outdoor rest area to balance the emergency management work requirements. And we do note that SAPOL has to adhere to the code of practice for the welfare of horses. The internal pens were installed from an animal husbandry requirement to minimise contact for injury in biting and nicking each other, and also the transference of sickness between horses, because they also get the common cold, which render them in a deteriorated state of health and unable to perform their operational duties. SAPOL is responsible to ensure the horses maintain the best health for activating in operational incidents. It does take 4 years to train police horses to operational level and a further 2 years to train to a public order level. They are not quickly replaced if they're injured or unwell from interaction with other horses, and that was the reason for the installation of the temporary wiring that constitutes the pens. SAPOL's ability to maintain operational readiness is compromised when the horses are injured or sick, and it will increase if they mingle with no fence pens. In the other item regarding Council's recommendation to reduce the horse presence in the olive groves by 50%, this course of action does raise critical issues for SAPOL's core operational requirements for maintaining public safety. The number of horses at the barracks is the minimum required for operational readiness. A reduction in those numbers will directly impact on the ability to deploy to the CBD. For animal husbandry requirements, it is critical to maintain the rotation of horses in natural green space outside of the barrack stables for the horses' health. The precinct adjacent to the Theberton Barracks does not offer other green space alternatives for securely resting the horses. The reduction of 50% of the horse presence in the Olive Grove area is therefore not considered feasible and will directly impact on SAPOL's operational ability for core service delivery for the safety and the security of the public of South Australia. SAPOL encourages Council to reconsider these two items and take this information into account, noting, of course, that we do understand that the trees are of concern, the state of the trees, and that we do want to work together to mitigate any future damage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, members, given that there are a number of visitors in the gallery this evening, I will, with your leave, bring forward item 17.3, which is Councillor Mackey's motion on reimagining Victoria Park. Councillor Mackey, are you happy to do that?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and with your indulgence and that of our colleagues, I would like to introduce an augmented
alternate motion.
Alternate motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. And
I'll allow members an opportunity to peruse this.
Thank you, Councillor Mackey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. If I have a seconder, I'm happy to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. So, Councillor Mackey, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I want to thank Professor McAvoy for his presentation. It sets at a kind of a meteorological level the sense of importance to the future of the public amenity of this part of the park, of the Adelaide parklands. I also want to especially acknowledge the collaboration and the dialogue and collaboration of fellow councillor Hyde in producing this alternative motion. It became very apparent to anybody who was following the mainstream media and social media that my intent with my motion was very, very quickly misinterpreted in some parts of the media, and where I had the opportunity to redress that on radio, I did so, and I'm grateful to Councillor Hyde for appreciating the actual intent, which was never to explicitly rip up the racetrack. It was actually about enhancing canopy to improve public amenity, particularly in these very, very, very hot days. Now, you'll notice there are a number of clauses in the alternative motion, and to bring those to members' attention, recognising that Victoria Park has a significant cultural value to a lot of users and members of our community. It is proposed that a separate report be prepared to advise on the potential for heritage listing of the section of the Adelaide Street Circuit within Victoria Park, in particular the Centre chicane, and that, of course, these reports would be provided to the Adelaide Parklands Authority for discussion and considered as possible amendments to the Adelaide Parklands management strategy, which is currently under review. I use Victoria Park all the time. Many people do. I can't say that I go cycling, but I walk my dogs. I do go running, although not in the midday sun. And it is very clearly a place of great appeal to people, and there has been an adaptive reuse of the former track for a range of uses which are now made explicit in this alternative motion. I am happy to defer now to my seconder and any others who would like to speak before I sum up.
Thank you, Councillor Mackie. Councillor Hyde?
Well, thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Mackie for the work that we undertook today to see this motion before us, which addresses a number of the public concerns that were raised on the topic. Naturally, the nature of races in the inner east of Adelaide is sometimes a contentious topic. As someone who has lived around them, sometimes the amenity of the area is disrupted, and certainly there are lingering impacts on Victoria Park. But at the same time, we do have to take the good with the bad, and the good certainly is that Victoria Park has been used for racing for many years now, as the motion notes, horse racing from 1846 until 2007, and of course we all know that it was the Formula One Australian Grand Prix that put Adelaide on the global map in many senses of the word. So it is definitely a culturally significant asset, the part of the Adelaide street circuit that is there within Victoria Park. And so noting that, and noting that it is still well used by the community generally, when we're thinking about a pedal pre, we're thinking about cyclists that use it. Obviously there are solar cars as well that use it and practice and test there as well. So we should be preserving this asset, but noting as well its immense cultural significance to the people of Adelaide and the people of South Australia generally. That's what this motion seeks to do, and while I've left it open-ended for the administration to advise on the nature of heritage listing that they would suggest for this site, in looking at the assessment criteria for a state heritage listing, and of course this is a community asset relevant to all people in South Australia, or a large portion thereof, things such as criterion B, it has rare, uncommon or endangered qualities that are of cultural significance. Well, it is quite rare. We only have one former Grand Prix track. As well, criterion F, it has strong cultural associations for the community or a group within it, and of course we know there are a lot of passionate motorsport fans out there as well. But in engaging with the community, Lord Mayor, including people who are within the motorsport industry, but also people within the recreational groups that use the park, it's clear that we need to be mindful of the changes, and we need to bring them along the journey as well. And certainly there are ambitions within the community of some sort of racing in to a lesser extent coming back, something that uses just the short track, something that's quite unintrusive, certainly not the very dystopian concrete and tyres for months on end that we unfortunately became used to seeing in and around Victoria Park. But I think, moreover, this sends a message to the community that this track is here to stay, and we acknowledge that it is an important part of our heritage and our history.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm just wondering if it's okay with the mover and if I can vary the motion.
If you want to suggest the variance, and then we'll go back to...
As after Part C, as part of the revision of the Community Land Management Plan. On top of the open community consultation, requests the administration directly engage with the...
Hang on, slow down just a little bit.
Sorry.
Administration directly engage. Yeah, it's behind you if that helps.
Oh, okay, thank you. Directly engage with the adjacent City of Adelaide residents and parties who have a lease, licence or formal use of the space.
Okay, so I will then go to the mover. Councillor Mackie, you okay?
Yes.
Councillor Hyde, you happy to accept that as variance? Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Deputy
Yes,
Lord
I
Mayor?
do, Lord Mayor. While I'm very grateful that two councillors have worked together to come to an arrangement that is the best way forward, and I agree with all of that. I think we just need to add an element to it in regards to the people that do use the track extensively. There is a whole list of them. I've downloaded the program from May to September, and there are a vast amount of groups that do use the track and also that area. As we have talked about the historical significance, we also talk about the current significance of what it means to the people that use it. And I think it's really important that whatever we do going forward, that we engage with these groups extensively and directly to actually come to an arrangement that doesn't inhibit the use of them using the track.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Councillor Kira.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I do support this motion overall. I think it is a worthy and worthwhile issue that's been raised by Councillor Mackie. It shouldn't be something that's artificially turned into a binary. I think what we will find is that there are opportunities for greater greening across Victoria Park, while simultaneously preserving the capacity and ensuring the capacity of the various groups who have made themselves heard very strongly in relation to Victoria Park, giving them comfort that that will not be impeded. And I think it's brought forward in a very good spirit. I just have an issue, Lord Mayor, with number 3, that is the request for a heritage listing of the section of the track. I've got a difficulty with this for 2 reasons. One is that I suspect that racetracks, car racing tracks, etc., they tend to change over time. Track layouts tend to change over time, over years. And I fear that this particular aspect may may do some harm to the public perception of the heritage listing apparatus and heritage listing powers. That's my fear with that. So my request is to the mover and seconder whether this can be read in parts and that particular section be part 2 of the overall motion. So 2 parts,
yes,
and part 3 sectioned out as a separate term.
So I'll go to the mover. You happy to take in parts?
Yes.
Seconded? Okay. Thank you, Councillor Kira. I have you, Councillor Moran. I've got Councillor Snape first, and then to you.
I actually agree with Councillor Kira on that last bit. If we're heritage listing things from 1985, maybe in 5 years' time I'll get myself heritage listed. I believe the spirit of the motion and the push from the community comes in 2 parts. 1 is an increase in the canopy, and 2 is a decrease in the tarmac, the asphalt. I don't think we're asking for a whole-scale removal of the track, but at least significant elements of the tarmac in the park. However, it's clear that coming out of the room today, that only half of that is really being considered, which is the tree canopy, in which case I would reluctantly support the proposal on the basis that, in 15 years' time, we need to get those trees in the ground, so let's get on with it. But I do note that I would wish that we would remove as much tarmac as possible.
Councillor Moran?
Yes, I agree with Councillor Snape. I don't understand how the print media so misrepresented this motion so that the racetrack was even involved in the discussion at all, and I can understand why then the perfectly good motion had to be fiddled with so that was put to bed, which is a shame. I will vote for it, but I would prefer to rip out the racing car track and all remnants of other cement features that are still there. It's not just the racing car track. In doing so, though, I would like to permanently remove the danger of, as the opposition's fiddling around with, of bringing sports of the kind we have seen, excluding perhaps electric cars, pedal prees, etc., of the tired barriers, the petrol fumes. I think we pussyfoot around a little bit, and I think Councillor Kerr is absolutely right. There is no reason to heritage list any part of the track. If there's a historical use of Victoria Park, it was for horse racing. Indeed, its Aboriginal name is something about horse racing. So I think that's really pandering to the petrol heads. Surely we're better than that now. We're trying to be a green city. I know that there are a lot of people that Mary kindly sent their emails to us that still really have a heartfelt love for motorsports. My father was one, my brother is. I come from a family of motorsport, petrolhead lovers. Now they can go down to Tailem Bend now. There's a wonderful motorsport facility down there. I would like to pull out the old track and then go, as Mary said, to the users of it. I love a hard surface. Kids love hard surfaces. And then build in its place a purpose-built, state-of-the-art cycling, pedal pre, hard surface. You can line that then with shade trees so that it is beautifully shaded, appropriate shade trees that don't lift the track. But to sort of tug our forelocks and say, wah, let's keep the track as it is, we all love the motorsport. No, we didn't. By the time Melbourne got it, we were about to get rid of it. And the supercars were never, it wasn't budgeted for in the next state budget. I remember it well. And as for the supercars, it was really a poor replacement. So I don't see why we have to heritage list something. If we're going to do that, do it for the horse racing. But I'd say rip up the track, plant some trees, and get a decent cycling track and a good one for the little pedal preers. This one is good enough for now, and I'll vote for this motion. But it shouldn't be our long-term plan to mothball this relic of the petrol-guzzling, carbon-depleting bad old days.
Thank you, Councillor Moran. Members, if there's no other speakers, I might just round back before I hand back to Councillor Mackie. I just want to thank Professor McAvoy and Elizabeth Rushbrook for being very passionate advocates, because they did come in to, it's all right, we're just trying to get the bell back, to see me and have seen Councillor Mackie about reimagining Victoria Park. Pre-COVID, there was a lot of people using it, but what COVID did do is see an enormous amount of use of Victoria Park. So for us to be able to increase the comfort and amenity of that area is something I think that we can all agree on in this chamber. I will just advise that there is a community forum, which is the Parkland Authority's first community forum, which is happening on the 23rd of October at Pavilion on the Park. And that will feed into the review that we're doing with Parklands Management Strategy. So I do invite those members in the chamber to come and join us if you're able. That will be running from 10 until 3, and it's a drop-in any time during the day. And also for members, that the appropriate place will be, of course, to consider the future use and the landscaping through the Community Land Management Plan, which is coming into the Parklands Authority and then to Council in the next few months. So that gives us another opportunity to have a look at the future use of the park. On that, I'll hand back to Councillor Mackie to sum up.
Thanks, Lord Mayor, and I want to thank my fellow councillors for their contribution, and I also, again, want to underscore and thank Professor McAvoy for his presentation earlier in the meeting. I would like, in summing up, just to remind those listening that at the root of this motion is a desire to achieve enhanced tree canopy to enable safer public enjoyment of this very, very popular part of the parklands, and it has over the last 150 plus years enjoyed changing uses, and that of course will continue to occur. I'm grateful again to Councillor Hyde for his assistance in making certain points clearer. I commend the motion to the floor.
Members, to the vote, those in favour? Oh, sorry, my apologies, thank you. So we'll take this in two parts. So we'll take parts 1, 2 and 4. Members, those in favour? Yes, 1, 2 and 4. I'm going to take part 3 separately. Those in favour, thank you. Those against? That is carried. Can I have that recorded as unanimous? And I will now go to part 3. Those in favour? Those against? I think that is... So it's carried. Thank you. So that is carried. Members, that takes us to item 8 on tonight's agenda, which is petitions. There are no petitions. And we go to 9.1, which is the advice of the Adelaide Parklands Authority. If I could have a mover. Thank you, Councillor Knoll, and a seconder, Councillor Hyde. Members, any discussion? If not, Councillor, to the vote, those in favour? Those against? That is carried. That takes us to 9.2. We have, before we go to the advice recommendations of the Audit Committee, David Powell, who's the presiding member, who will come forward and address the meeting. Welcome, David.
Good evening, Lord Mayor, elected members, staff, ladies and gentlemen. Under the recently revised terms of reference for the Audit Committee, I'm pleased to present to you the financial statements for noting by the Council tonight. The Audit Committee met on the 15th of September to consider the accounts of the Adelaide Central Market Authority, and on the 8th of October to consider the consolidated financial statements together with the remaining subsidiaries. The Audit Committee considered that the consolidated financial statements present fairly the financial position of the City of Adelaide. The consolidated financial statements have been prepared in accordance with the Local Government Act and the Financial Management Regulations. The accounts also included those of ACMA, the AIDA, the Rundle Mall Management Authority, Adelaide Parklands Authority, and Brown Hill Keswick Creek Stormwater Board. And there were a number of changes to the structure of some of these subsidiaries, and they noted in the accounts. We would like to recognise the Chief Financial Officer and the finance team for their efforts in preparing the financial statements for this year. The external auditors, BDO, have also completed their audits and provide unqualified opinions on both the financial statements and the control environment. The Audit Committee also met with the external auditors in camera. You might recall my presentation to the committee on the 5th of May 2020 in the early days of COVID-19, noting the significant impact of the pandemic on both revenues and services. And you may also recall my comments to the elected member workshop in November 2020 around deficits and the importance of it not continuing, and it wasn't financially sustainable. I'm pleased to report tonight, due to significant effort by both the Council and the CEO and administration working together to find savings, including restructuring, UPark Plus and other cost-saving initiatives, that we've reported an operating deficit of $6.9 million in a difficult and challenging year. The $6.9 million deficit was an improvement on the $18.3 million deficit for the prior year, and significantly better than the budgeted deficit of $36 million for the year. Also, our debt levels on June 30 were $34 million compared to $51 million last year, and well below budgeted debt of $90 million. From the committee's point of view, we encourage you to stay the course of returning council to modest surpluses, and that future projects seek and generate revenue or cost savings. I'd like to thank the council for the opportunity to serve the City of Adelaide in this way.
Thank you, David. Members, with that, we will go to the advice recommendations of the Audit Committee from the 15th of September and the 8th of October 2021. And I'll look for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Hyde. And a seconder, Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Councillor Hyde, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Only to commend the administration and the council on their good work in seeing that result. Obviously, there's a lot of work that's been done, particularly over the last sort of 18 months, I guess, in total, but particularly the last 6 and 12, to see our financial position turned around. And considering that I think it was a $36 million projected deficit, but of course if we hadn't moved to have the $20 million in operational savings, that would have been a $56 million projected deficit, which is absolutely unsustainable. That was at the start of this financial year. Our projected deficit went from the 36, I think it peaked at 41 and a half throughout the course of the last financial year. But because of the direction provided by the council chamber and the dutiful acquiescence and efforts of the administration to that, we have seen those projected deficits come down and down and down to settle at what, relatively speaking, is a very small number at a deficit of 6.9 million, which is obviously still in the red, and we don't want to see that any further. But of course, the work of this chamber and with the administration means that we're still projecting a budget surplus next year and for all subsequent years in our long-term financial plan. Because of other changes that we've made, we will be debt-free in only a few years' time. Whereas if left untinkered with and unamended, we were looking at over $200 million of debt in 10 years' time. So, Lord Mayor, I just wanted to commend the Council and those that supported those measures, and just show all of us here what a good, prudent financial management looks like. It takes a little bit of elbow grease, a little bit of understanding the books, and also working with our excellent staff on this result. So I just wanted to commend all those who were involved in this effort.
Thank you. Councillor Abrahimzadeh, did you wish to speak? Councillor Martin?
Yeah, look, I also want to suggest that Councillor Hyde has been far too modest. As he told the Advertiser recently, he has, as the person who calls the shots in this chamber, turned around our financial circumstances. And what a great job he's done. As the leader of the Team Adelaide faction, it is, I think...
Councillor Martin, it's so good to have you back in the chamber.
Well, I thought you'd like to hear the words Team Adelaide.
No, I don't. If we can actually stick to the motion before us, which is the advice and recommendations of the Audit Committee. Thank you.
Well, I thank you for that advice, but I didn't hear that when Councillor Hyde was congratulating the Council on the excellent job you've done. Lord Mayor, I acknowledge, as Councillor Hyde did, that our financial circumstances are as they are because they've been tinkered with. That was the word he used, or was it untinkered? But anyway, it's been altered primarily because of the actions of this Council on the 13th of April, in which amounts were removed from long-term financial planning, assets were removed from the asset management plan, and as a consequence, I have, and I'm expressing a personal view here, I have not much faith in the figures that are presented to us on a regular basis. If all of that information that was withdrawn on the 13th of April was placed back into the budget, you would see a very different circumstance, and not one in which, as it's boasted, we will be debt-free in just a few years. Nevertheless, I do want to thank the chair of the Audit Committee. It was the chair of the Audit Committee who blew the whistle on the substantial overspending of operating budgets in consecutive financial years at a committee meeting just 18 months ago. Had it not been for the chair of the Audit Committee so forcefully putting that point of view, there wouldn't have been the incentive for Councillor Hyde to rescue us as he does. So, Lord Mayor, let's acknowledge Councillor Hyde. It was, as the advertiser reported, a remarkable achievement.
Very remarkable, yeah.
Members, would anybody else like to speak to the recommendations of the Audit Committee? If not, I'll go to the mover to sum up.
Councillor Martin is most generous, but of course the decision and the turnaround actually belongs to everyone who supported those measures. But moreover, I would just highlight that while I did touch on them, albeit briefly, these are the audited financial statements going back for the previous 12 months. That's really what we're here discussing, not how this council took leadership and acted and made decisions in the ratepayers' best interest in order to see that we don't enter mountains of debt and have deficits as far as the eye can see. This is just for the previous 12 months. And again, just reiterate, those previous 12 months have seen us come down from a peak projected deficit of $41.5 million to just $6.9 million now. I actually can't take the credit for that one, and that one actually I have to take my hat off to the administration in particular, who have done a fantastic job tightening the belt wherever possible while still delivering all of the services that the City of Adelaide delivers, and doing that in the middle of the worst global pandemic we've seen in a century. That is no mean feat, and so I hope all councillors will join me in commending them for that effort. It's not easy, but we've still managed to do everything that we do, and there is a mountain of work that this council does. We've managed to do that, we've managed to fix our books, and we've managed to keep our workforce and our community safe in the process. And that's really what the achievement here is about.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Members to the vote, those in favour, those against, that is carried. Members, I'm going to run through or reports on the agenda en bloc. If you could please raise your hand if you would like any of these items pulled out. So 10.1, exemptions from the EOI process. 10.2, weeknight parking controls, to be noted. Councillor Martin. 10.3.
Sorry,
Councillor Mackey.
Lord Mayor. Apologies. I didn't keep up with the pace. Not that the pace was unreasonable. I want to seek clarification from the administration in regard to item 10.1, exemptions from the EOI process, noting that in my day job I have a reporting relationship to the Minister for Education, and whether that means I should abstain.
I think the answer was no, but thank you for raising that. 10.3, Disability Access and Inclusion Plan. 10.4, Adelaide Aquatic Centre. Thank you. 10.5, Paxton's Walk. 10.6, Town Hall Operation Model. 10.7, Sapole Horse Adjustment. 10.8, Progress of Motions by Elected Members. 10.9, City of Adelaide Annual Report. 10.10, Audit and Risk Committee Terms of Reference. 10.11, Local Government Reform Feedback on Proposed Community Engagement Charter. 10.12, Report on Financial Results 2020 to 2021. Thank you. Members, if I could have someone move 10.1, 10.3, 10.5, 10.8, 10.10, 10.11. That's it. Thank you, Councillor Knoll, seconded Councillor Abrahamsday. Members, those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thank you. One moment. Thank you, members. That takes us to 10.2, weeknight parking controls, and I'll look for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Hyde. I'll look for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Councillor Hyde, did you wish to speak?
Okay.
Councillor Abrahimzadeh?
No, thank you.
Members? Councillor Martin?
Yes, Lord Mayor. Look, I did ask for this to be pulled out because I do want the opportunity to vote against it. Essentially, the City of Adelaide has a business hours only business operating for on-street parking complaints Sunday to Thursday. Now I know there are exceptions, but I'm talking about the regular pattern. And in the feedback that I've had from residential and business ratepayers so far, they're saying they will have to continue to endure inconvenience as a consequence of this council not maintaining the regimen it did. That is the inconvenience of cars parked across driveways when there are real issues of safety associated with that. That is inconvenience of cars parked in permit zones when those cars do not have permits. That is the inconvenience of cars parked in contravention of parking controls out the front of businesses. And in those circumstances, in the past, and I'm assuming the response will be the same, our customer centre has simply told our ratepayers, business and residential, that if it's an emergency, you can try to call Polo. They may come out, they may not, but ring back tomorrow morning. Now, Lord Mayor, we used to be a capital city with capital city services. My view is that particularly in the business of policing parking controls, we have a capital city now that's operating with services that are at best the equivalent of regional services. And I do note that Councillor Hyde asserts that we are continuing at this council to deliver the services we've always delivered, and that's not true. It is certainly clear that there has been a reduction of services in some areas in the city, and this is one of them. This is where those savings have come from by offering a lesser service to the ratepayers, business and residential of the city. I will vote against this. It is unfortunate, and I apologise personally to our ratepayers for any disappointment they may feel in this contraction of what they've been used to in terms of services.
Members? If not, I'll go back to the mover to sum up. Councillor Hyde? Summed up? Members to the vote, those in favour? Those against? That is carried.
Division.
A division's been called. All those members in favour of the motion, please rise.
Councillor Mackie, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Khera, Councillor Ho, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Donovan and Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Members, that takes us to 10.4 on tonight's agenda, which is the Adelaide Aquatic Centre. I'll look for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Hyde.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I have an alternative, which I think administration had. I'm happy to read it out for the benefit of members. I think they're quite literate themselves.
Thank you. Members, I'll look for a seconder. I didn't see which hand went up first. Sorry, I've got Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This addresses some of the concerns raised by Councillor Moran in committee, but moreover the concerns needed to be addressed in my view because in chatting with colleagues I think it's clear that we may want to go in a slightly different direction to what the administration was proposing, and that is that if we're going to be spending this much money, we should be delivering an indoor 50-metre pool. The quantum of money that we're talking about here is not insignificant. I think, as do members of the community, think that an outdoor 50-metre pool would not see use all year round as our current aquatic centre does. You only need to look at pools such as the Burnside pool, which is still not yet open after its winter closure. I think it opens next week. And those smaller municipal pools such as Unley and Marion and what have you, not obviously the State Aquatic Centre at Marion, the council pool, I mean, they don't see use over the colder months. Looking at the lay of the land regarding aquatic services, I would say that the closure of those pools during the winter months is actually what keeps our aquatic centre, which is obviously indoor, going. So I do question some of the findings in the feasibility work that has been done to date. And that takes me to the second point. And that second point is that obviously there has been some work around allied health services aligned to the pool, but again, the quantum of investment that we are providing and seeking and will be overseeing, I think demands that we have a particular focus on health and well-being for our ratepayers and for the broader community. And that's why I'm very keen for the administration to further explore and more holistically explore the inclusion of some of those health and well-being aspects, whether it's things such as not just hydrotherapy, but physiotherapy as it is, whether it's professional masseuses or possibly even things, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to having a day spa offering or something like that. Certainly we do get complaints, as Simon Ho does, Councillor Ho, that the steam rooms and the saunas are not big enough. And so certainly there is demand for that sort of service at such a centre as well. There are many other things that you could look at from an allied health perspective that could be involved in this. Health and wellbeing is a key focus of the state government and the council at the moment, and if we could incorporate those allied health aspects into this in a more wholesome way, I think we could really have a community facility that lots of people will use, and people who may not necessarily just be using the aquatic centre may come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Mayor,
Madam, in the gallery. There's no interjection from the gallery or you'll be asked to leave.
700,000 visitations a year, and we're looking to build a facility that provides for not in the 6 figures but in the 7 figures. And I think if we incorporate more aspects into it, you will see a facility that is very, very well patronised. And as well,
Sorry, Madam, I will ask you please to leave if you're going to continue to interrupt.
What are you going to do that here?
Madam, that is the last chance, please. If there's any further interjection, I will ask you to be escorted from the chamber. Okay, thank you. If you would please leave the chamber, that would be appreciated.
That was quite behind today.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Councillor Hyde. I think there was...
Who cares? Look, the incorporation of these aspects as well, Lord Mayor, will also enhance the ability of this asset of the councils, which is a commercial asset, to actually gain a higher return. And that return, obviously, per the report that we've got, which highlights a sinking fund in there, means that we can make sure that this aquatic centre, and this council can make sure that our aquatic centre never finds itself in the situation that we find ourselves in today, where successive councils over many decades have kicked the can down the road that we then have to assume and foot the bill for, and go and beg and grovel to other levels of government to foot the bill for. That's what this model is seeking to achieve. If we can put away a little bit each time into a sinking fund, we know that the lifespan of an aquatic centre is around 50 years. We've learnt that through this process. So if we can put away some funds into a sinking fund, we can ensure that this aquatic centre, when it needs to be rebuilt, can be rebuilt, and that it can do that off its own back without having to go to our ratepayers and to other levels of government.
Thank you. Councillor Abrahams, did you wish to speak? Members. Councillor Moran?
Yes, I'm glad that Councillor Hyde has put the words authorised, because I don't think we can give, as I said in the committee, writing instructions to just noting. And this allows me to vote against it with clear reasons. What we're trying to foist on our ratepayers, who have clearly said that they would like the existing facility redone. Now, we have we were given a quote of, I think, $15 million to refurb it up to standard. And now we're looking at a $65 million, with us still only contributing $15 million. If we can afford $15 million, why don't we fix up what we've got? And I don't think the $10 million to pull the building down is included in that 65. So we'll end up, of course, as Night Follows Day, with 2 buildings. Indoor cricket will line up, indoor soccer, indoor everything. So we'll have 2 buildings on the parkland. But I think what sticks in people's craws most is that we're planning to build a large building on the parkland with a 400 at-grade car park. And yet at the same time we're bitching to the state government, who are building a women's and children's hospital, that we don't want a similar sized at-grade car park on the parklands. And remembering, and I don't agree with this, that most people talk about the parklands at the hospital and the car park are going on as degraded. We're not talking about degraded parklands here. We're talking about whacking a 400 at-grade car park right next to residents along Barton Terrace. The wonderful thing about the current position of our aquatic centre, it doesn't bother anybody. It's out of the way. It's on the bus route, and it's not impinging on anybody's residential amenity. The reason we suggested back in the day that we move it down to the corner of across the road from the Caledonian Hotel was to ingratiate ourselves to the Crows, who were around then when that was mentioned, so that they could use the Caledonian as their Crows shed. Now those days happily have moved on, so we don't have to listen to that anymore. This desire to keep an aquatic centre going while we build a new one is not necessary. There are other aquatic centres in South Australia that could be used for the time that we drain our pools, fix the concrete cancer and retile them. We already have an indoor facility. It's a big indoor facility, it's huge. And we should just fix up what we've got with our own money. The government will say no to the money, so will the federal government. No will be the answer, and we've just faffed around, handout. The other councils haven't kicked the can. They've kept an ageing facility with a council reluctant, well, you're right in a way, a council reluctant to put any big money in for a long time. So they've done their best, and it's still swimmable, but it won't be for much longer. I also urge you against the loose language of health facilities. The Next Generation had health facilities. 88 O'Connell Street has health facilities. And what we think of
Councillor, do you require extra time?
Or just 30 seconds?
Chamber? Good.
What we always think of those is aromatherapy, a bit of a bit of meditation. What you get is colonic irrigation services. You get radiotherapy clinics with 2 feet thick walls because the radiation leaks. That's what you get. But also, think about the poor guy that's running a physiotherapy unit in the city, or, sorry, the building owner who rents it out to a radiotherapy. I'm sure he'd lose his customers because it's very attractive to be right next to a swimming pool. So I think it's once again building on the parklands for commercial. This is not just a commercial thing. This is a lifestyle and health for our city. If we present it to the governments as a commercial liability, we won't get a red cent. So you better change that language pretty damn quickly.
Councillor Snape.
Surprise, surprise, I have to echo Councillor Moran's comments. I did make a suggestion in committee that perhaps we look at the old Women's and Children's Hospital. Clearly that isn't a feasible option or a desirable option from administration at this point. But, you know, even putting that option forward, is there a point if we're not going to get the money in the first place, which I strongly suspect is the case. So, yes, rather than kicking the can down the road and waiting in about 18 months only to find out we're not getting the money and it's even more dilapidated, let's use that money and let's fix it up. Let's fix it up fast.
Councillor Kerr.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Really just wanted to speak to the amendment. I don't really wish to be drawn on the merits of replacing the Aquatic Centre. However, I am compelled to point out that we are all aware that any car parking, any new car parking that's proposed will see the equivalent car parking returned to parklands elsewhere. It is a replacement of like for like, so it would be really good for the council in general if this sort of really half-truths could cease. That somehow it's a net new allocation of parking. It's not. And as for the merits of retaining what is a decrepit and dangerous structure that was never purpose-built as an indoor swimming pool, I think the vast majority of Adelaide can see that very clearly. There's no need to go over it. On the amendment, just two questions for administration. One is we are turning from noting report to authorising progress. Is this going to cause any problems in terms of process? No. Okay, that's cool.
CEO, did you wish to answer that?
Thank you through the chair. No, I don't foresee any issues with that.
Thank you. And is it possible? If I could seek an undertaking from the CEO, it's an issue I raised in relation to the town hall, commercialisation of the town hall, etc., or the town hall operating program. When further reports come to us and they do address the issue, this what's proposed of holistic health and wellbeing services being located in a proposed new aquatic centre, can the administration present to us consideration of crowding out of the private sector that might ensue, consideration of the competition principles, guiding principles in relation to any concerns that we may end up. It's something that happens in general. I think it's an issue we need to tackle in relation to finding new funding streams in general. But we are open to the accusation that we have some ratepayers who are essentially paying for competition for their own services. So if you provide buildings that are used as day spas or buildings that are used for physiotherapy, you're paying rates that will go towards competition. It is a bigger, broader issue, and at the moment I feel something of a gap in a guiding principle or this issue being addressed. So I think it would be really good if that can be.
See?
Thank you through the chair. Yes, Councillor Kira, you have raised those concerns for a number of years. Perhaps what I think we could do is a workshop with members in the coming months to just go through what the current legal requirements are as a local government organisation, and perhaps get a sense from council where are those areas where council would feel more comfortable that we spend our efforts in terms of any commercial activity, and then in relation to how we present information such as this, and as you've already mentioned last week with the town hall, that we build into all our reports as a standard some sort of commentary that demonstrates that type of analysis.
Members, Councillor Knoll, then Councillor Martin.
Yes, I'd like to thank Councillor Hyde for changing the wording, because what we are trying to do here is that, one, I mean, when we look at the history of the Aquatic Centre, it was a partnership previously. We lost that partnership with the state government and their support and assistance, which meant that we had to do everything ourselves. And again, that's where you then have this issue about being able to fund what it is, and it's not being designed to be an indoor pool and all of those things that go with it. The age of the centre means that the cost, I mean, we don't all drive around in 25-year-old cars. They are inefficient. They're certainly not fit for purpose anymore, other than going for a bay to Birdwood. This is sort of fits in that realm, and we need to redo it because what we have today as new technologies, etc., in how we build and how we run things is certainly very important, and also what we need to be doing on behalf of our constituents and users, because again, people do want to have good, high quality facilities, etc., and you don't get that by trying to refurb something and tinkering with the outsides, etc., and really not getting the outcomes you're looking for. I mean, we've had a needs analysis which has brought what our community and also the greater suburban community sees that they would like to have. I mean, so first, at least in the first instance, we try to accommodate those what they desire and see what that looks like and how we can do that. It still requires partnerships from other levels of government. Then we look at the variety of services. And again, we are here to run as efficiently as we can and provide lots of services, etc. I was amazed at the sort of services that were provided just in talking in general with people, and from diving for those quadriplegics, things like that, in the deep pools to all sorts of other things. And I thought, wow, how amazing that is for me, how this facility, and it needs to function all year, because otherwise, that health aspect, and you can't get the numbers. Because I note too that it's a 20% variance, very roughly, summer-winter. So that you'll need those numbers to get a feasible quantity of people in to be able to sustain it. And let us not forget, only say if it's 8-9% of visitors are from Adelaide, and moving it closer to Adelaide and getting a link to it that we can actually get there without too much difficulty means that more local residents will be able to use it from the city and use it as their swimming facility. And that means that we will get more visitation of our own, but the majority of these people are coming from elsewhere. They are not using the city, not now because of the way it's positioned, and they go back out because it's easy to go home again. This now enables more people to get towards the city and help interact with it. It means we can give services to people who would not normally give services near our city because they would get it somewhere else. 30 seconds if I may.
Members? Sorry, show hands. Thank you.
And so these are new customers for these services, not old customers. And we are trying to get people back into town. That is our job. And this is one of those ways to do that. Also, the running of this facility, I do believe it's about $1.5 million cheaper to run. So it's not only the environmental efficiency that we get out of this and the reconfiguring and the modernisation of its service for the people that want to use it, but we've also got a cheaper running model, and that's really critical. And and I think for this, we do need to go forward with it and not just keep trying to refurb something, because that's not going to encourage more people into our city and the high quality of service that people expect from the City of Adelaide, because we can. And that's what it is that attracts people to our city, is that they get a much better outcome.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Yes, Lord Mayor, a question to the administration, if I may. Attachment A to 10.4, what does it say are the number of car parks presently provided at the site of the Aquatic Centre?
CEO?
Oh, I can answer it for you if you like.
A rhetoric question then, was it?
Yes.
So you're speaking?
No, it's all right. I'll wait for the official answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Presiding member, Mr Macready. Thank you.
Through you, presiding member, Mr Coles will answer the question, but you probably have the answer in front of you, Councillor, so I'll be happy to hear your response as well.
No, I prefer the official response.
Through the chair, for the new centre, I believe the question was.
No, in regards to car
before.
You're asking in car parks or square metres, sorry, Councillor? In car parks or square metres, you're asking, Councillor?
Car parks.
The existing centre has 260 car parks and the new centre has 400 car parks.
There you go.
Oh dear. So the claim by Councillor Kira that it's dishonest to suggest it's going to be larger, that it's like for like, is not right.
It is indeed not.
Oh dear.
Point of clarification, Lord Mayor. Anyone, and this applies to councillors here, of course, who's been following
I'm just asking
anyone who has been following this debate knows
knows
that what we are
someone who talks.
Because Councillor Martin, if someone says point of order, point of clarification, I have to see what the point of clarification or order is.
Lord Mayor,
to the point, please, Councillor Kieran.
The statement like for like talks about the overall square metrage that is going to be utilised for a new aquatic centre.
Okay, so that's the point of you're
that's
asking
very
for
clear
clarification.
what's being said. So this is highly disingenuous.
Oh well, Lord Mayor, let's go a step further. What is the square meterage of the new aquatic centre with the 400 space car park compared to the square meterage of the current aquatic centre plus 266 car parks?
See?
Thank you, Mr. Coles, please.
Through the Chair, as per the report and the table shown in the report, the overall square metres of the proposed facilities is smaller than the existing aquatic centre when you take into account the building square metres required and the car parking requirement.
Oh, it's not like that.
It's reduced.
It's reduced with the new facility is smaller than the existing facility. When it specifically comes to car parks, just to provide some additional context, the number that I quoted was in association with car park spaces. The existing car park is particularly inefficient, and we believe with the exact same square meterage, the number is around about the 350 mark. And I would just also add the context that we're talking about a feasibility, which is, I guess, a range of assumptions that are quite intertwined into the overall feasibility. So the proposal for 400 car park spaces is mainly informed by the needs analysis and the industry benchmarking that was undertaken. So that fleshes into the overall visitation numbers and all those types of activities. So it's quite a complicated mix of assumptions, and probably not simple to say that the position is such that it requires 400 car park bays, just that that is the best information to inform the feasibility at this moment in time.
And one final question. Could the administration advise whether the consultants considered an underground car park?
Through the CO.
Thank you, presiding member. Sure.
Through the feasibility process, an undercroft car park was not costed, an at-grade car park was costed. So the key difference would be the associated costs of going undercroft, which would be an activity we could undertake. So what's costed is an at-grade car park for the 400 bays.
Okay, thank you. May I speak, Lord?
You may.
Look, I will not vote for this. I think the assumptions and the conclusions in this, in my point of view, my personal point of view, are as misguided as the remarks Councillor Kira made about car parks. I am, however, thankful to Councillor Hyde once again for the way he's calling shots on this. The move indoor with the pool is a sensible move, and indeed it is, when you review the tables, the preference that's expressed by the user groups, almost all of them, a majority anyway. It is, however, inadequate in itself, and one of the reasons that was discussed and canvassed by other consultants and in council and committee in the past has been that if there are ever to be competitive events which are subsidised by patronage from spectators, the cost of providing seating around a 50-metre indoor pool are prohibitive. That is one of the reasons why previous consultants have proposed a 50-metre pool outdoors. And without an outdoor facility, it makes the proposition, in the view of a lot of our stakeholders, as it makes it unworkable. But look, there are other flaws in this. There's no provision, in my view, for diving or water polo, both of which attract significant patronage, and I'm happy for the administration to provide an argument about that. The car park, for which I could not find an illustration, is, as Councillor Moran observed, oddly at odds with the assertion of Council that it won't allow the government to build a car park on the parklands associated with the Women's and Children's Hospital, but we're quite happy to do it for our own development. And furthermore, I am puzzled that we are not doing this, because even the Crows, when we were contemplating, as you described it, Lord Mayor, the perfect partnership, even the Crows were proposing to underground.
I don't recall saying that, but...
you did actually, Lord Mayor.
Would you... your time, Councillor Martin.
Yes, I know, but you raised a point of order.
I didn't actually raise a point of order.
You challenged me, saying you didn't say that. I just wanted to help you out there. You don't want me to help you out?
Well, you can, because I know what I said.
Okay. Well, look, you said it to somebody called Rowie, and you said it on 5AA in 2019. Would you like the date? No, you don't. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, it's great. It's good to see you're in good form, Councillor Martin. We've missed you. CEO, would you please clarify around water polo and diving?
Thank you through the presiding member. My understanding is water polo is accommodated in any new facility, but Sean, can you just confirm that, please?
Through the chair, yes, water polo is accommodated in the new facility in the concept items and stuff that's associated with the feasibility. There is a more detailed design process required to work out if we could do open men's competition with the associated depths and things of that nature, but the short answer is that water polo is accommodated.
Thank you for clarification. Sorry?
And diving, I wasn't correct on
that. There is no diving. Members, if not, Deputy Lord Mayor, did you wish to speak?
I'm going to speak directly to the amendment.
Thank you.
I'm not going to divert from any further discussion, because we have spoken about them at length to why we're here and why we've got this final report in regards to the centre. I do appreciate, CEO, to have the workshop as you specified, because I do the commercial viability in regards to the centre there, or all our assets, because although I understand what Councillor Hyde is saying here, I would obviously like to know what that would represent to the community out there if we have the centre set up as a commercial facility. Outdoor pool, indoor pool, I do agree. It is something that has been requested a lot through that consultation. It would be well used if it was indoors, so that would be my preference, considering that it was very strong in the consultation. I think that this is, I'd like to commend the administration for the work being done here. It's been a lot of discussions, and it's great that we've been able to get to somewhere in regards to the new centre. And I won't talk about the old centre and how we got here. But thank you.
Members, Councillor Donovan.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support this, because at this stage all we're doing is acknowledging the report and we're authorising a funding discussion. So I think some of the nuances that are being discussed within this topic are next steps. So I certainly would agree with some of the points made about reducing car parking on the parklands, absolutely eliminating ideally. But at this point we're just looking at what's in the report, and then let's look to some funding discussion. So I'm happy to support that.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Councillor Hyde, is that a question, or I was about to go to you to sum up, but if you have
I think there might be another speaker.
Oh, sorry,
anyway.
yes.
No, I did just have a question. If, through Lord Mayor, the CEO, or Mr. McCready could reconfirm the footprint scale, just for absolute clarity.
Through you, CEO.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Tom, can you just confirm that, please? Thank you.
Through you, Presiding Member, one of the things that we looked at was the reduced footprint. So the overall building footprint for the Adelaide Aquatic Centre, as it sits at the minute, is 11,900 square metres. The proposal in front of you is 7,662, so a reduced footprint of building footprint. The total land footprint is 29,000 square metres. We're proposing 24,121 square metres, so we're actually talking about a reduced impact on the parklands to accommodate what you see before you.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Is that the question? Councillor Abraham, did I saw your hand up? Is there no further question, Councillor Martin?
Yes, it is, Lord Mayor. I wonder if the administration can enlighten us as to the studies that have been commissioned in terms of disruptions to traffic flow as a consequence of the chosen location, whether there will be a need for any amendment to the way in which cars move, any changes to parking, the kind of traffic study that's normally done.
Traffic management,
yeah.
Yes. Through the CEO.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the Presiding Member, traffic management is always an integral part of any consideration as we move through major projects across all the city, whether it's our project or others. Tom, are you able to please give Councillor Martin an update? Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Through you, Presiding Member, we will be coming back as part of the detailed feasibility in regards to the traffic impacts. However, it was clear to us when we were asked to look at the northeastern section of the parklands of Park 2 that would have the most significant traffic impact being close to a main arterial route, but we will come back to Council prior to any decision.
I'm sorry, can I ask if Mr. McCready can repeat the last bit? I couldn't hear.
Through you, Presiding Member, I'll slow down for my accent.
No,
apologies.
No, all right.
So effectively, we will be coming back through the detailed feasibility in regards to a traffic impact statement, which will show the impacts of the location and how it impacts in the approaching traffic. However, one of the reviews we did do as a tabletop exercise was to look at the locations that Council proposed to us, which was to look at the northeastern and the southeastern sections of Park 2, and it was clear to us that the northeastern section would have the most impact in regards to traffic. So that's why Southeastern was actually presented to you tonight as part of the feasibility.
And Lord Mayor, I thank the administration for that answer. Just a bit of clarity though, the southeastern site would have less traffic impact. In what way?
Because it wasn't near a major arterial road.
So 5 lanes or 4 lanes of traffic are better than 2 or 4.
Sorry, can we just stop the chit-chat happening between Councillor Martin and Tom?
Yes.
Yeah. I'd appreciate, please, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, no, so the point that the administration is making, and I'm genuinely asking this, Lord Mayor, the point the administration is making is that there's more disruption with a bigger road than there is with...
No, there was actually, the answer was there was more impact in terms of traffic management because it was next to a major arterial road, and that information will be coming back to Council before we make any further decisions.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Mackie. Oh, sorry, it was Councillor Abraham's. My apologies. Thank you.
Either way.
Sorry.
Everyone wants to speak on this issue, given that we have been discussing it for the past few years. Lord Mayor, I'll be brief. In terms of the sinking fund and a number of things that have been highlighted in the report, I am all for that. The holistic health and wellness services, yes, that gets a big tick from me. But also particularly the indoor pool component. I think that will lead to more visitations, which will help the income of the centre. And having been a regular user of that pool for the past 8 or 9 years now, I can assure you the visitors that I talk to, in the months of June, July, or August at 6 a.m. They don't want to be swimming outdoors at that time. So this is a much better option and something that will lead to more visitations. I'm also pleased to see administration comparing the footprint under point 34 in the report. We've got about 4,500 square metres that will be returned to parkland, so that is that's a big tick and a win, regardless of whether if you're for this centre or not. But Lord Mayor, the one thing that I constantly ask myself, and have faced this multiple times in this chamber, and that is the $15 or $16 million expenditure on this pool to get it up to a good standard. This is $15 or $16 million that we can be putting towards a new pool, not to go back and constantly put band-aids all over this pool. I remember back in 2013 or 2014, the pool went through a renovation, and I think it was probably about 12 or 18 months after that renovation that I questioned the state of the pool, and I thought, what was the point of doing all of that work when we now have tiles falling apart or grout looking not like grout? So any money that we can put aside to spend on a new aquatic centre, I'll support. But I believe that this centre, as has been highlighted in the past to us, is way past its use-by date. And I think the community expects us to take leadership and give them something that they can use for years and decades to come.
Thank you. Councillor Mackie.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I just want to start by recognising that I think I have it right in terms of my memory of the discussions that have occurred to date in various workshops since I commenced my term on council, that we are all in agreement that the community wishes to see an aquatic centre. Of course, there will be those who don't rate it as highly as others, but as a capital city, and I think we've progressed to that. So in terms of the things we agree on, I recognise Councillor Moran's points regarding the existing facility and the cost and opportunity cost of demolition versus replacement. I am also recognising that I think pretty well everybody who's spoken this evening would prefer, consistent with the community engagement, that we retain an indoor 50-metre pool, and the opportunity cost of doing so versus an exterior pool amortised over let's say, even if we said 40 years, in the scheme of things, relative to the potential upside for the sustainability from a business perspective, I think is strong. So, in summary, noting that this is a process motion, we're noting the report that's been provided, and Councillor Hyde's additional paragraph regarding the funding discussion and revisiting the 50-metre, I am supportive. So actually, on balance, I'm supportive of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mackie. Members, if not, I'll go to Councillor Hyde to sum up. Members to the vote, those in favour, those against, that is carried.
All those members in favour of the motion, please rise.
Councillor Mackie, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Khera, Councillor Ho, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Donovan, Councillor Hyde and Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Members, that takes us to 10.6, which is the Adelaide Town Hall operational model, and I look for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Martin. You're moving?
I was going to move an alternative, if I may.
Do you have it?
It's at 2. In the recommendation, approves the administration entering into discussions. And after Adelaide Town Hall, the amendment should read, and subsequently seeking the endorsement of council.
So members, I look for a seconder. So it's entering into discussions rather than agreements, and subsequently seeking endorsement of council. So
Correct,
Councillor
yes.
Slade. So you have a seconder.
Thank you. Yep. May I just begin by asking some questions of the administration? What is a music, as is suggested, home company, and how many of them are there?
Through the CEO.
Thank you, through the presiding member. So just a bit of context, and then I'll pass over to Ms Anthony to fill you in with that level of detail, Councillor Martin. We've been working with the UNESCO City of Music over the last couple of years, and council members have received numerous updates in relation to the opportunity for the Adelaide Town Hall as one of the most preeminent music venues in the city to become the home of music here in the city of Adelaide. But Christy, would you like to provide Councillor Martin with some more detail in relation to those home companies? Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, yes. They're really music organisations, Councillor, and that could be from a small quartet to an organ-based group to a small choir, etc.
The papers, the discussion refers to, Lord Mayor, through you, refers to using the town hall as a base. That means one assumes the home of that organisation. Have there been any discussions with any organisations by the administration or the Lord Mayor with any music organisation, and particularly the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra?
There has been, but ages ago, so I'd have to pass on. I haven't had any recent conversations, Councillor Martin. Through the CEO.
Thank you, through the chair. Over the last few years, there has certainly been discussions with the ASO about the suitability of the Adelaide Town Hall as the home venue for the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra, but certainly not for the last couple of years.
Okay, now this did come to council in 2018 and was rejected. At that time, the proposal was that the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra would extend the stage into the town hall, reducing seating capacity. Has that changed, do we know, or would that still be the case? We don't know.
Through the CEO.
Sorry, I'm not sure what you're referring to in relation to 2018, but I'm certainly aware when the ASO presents certain productions, it is required to extend the stage.
Okay, and if the town hall is to be the base or the home for an organisation such as the ASO, that would necessitate storage, as it has now its current venue, plus offices. Do we believe we could accommodate that within the town hall, within other parts of the town?
Through the CEO.
Thank you. Through the presiding member, you are testing my memory, Councillor Martin. We did do work, as I said, a number of years ago in relation to seeing whether the ASO could be accommodated within the Adelaide Town Hall. I would need to dust that off. There were certain requirements, certainly around office space, around access, so I would need to go back and revisit that work.
Okay. Look, thank you for that, Lord Mayor. Look, I have to say that I am a supporter of the ASO basing itself at Town Hall. I do think that there is a case to be made for that. or any other large musical organisation, on the basis that the Town Hall continues to be available to other groups, including Musica Viva, for free concerts such as organ recitals and the like, and for public meetings as well. But I am cognizant of the discussions that were held in 2018 and the formal proposal that came to Council, which Council was uncertain about and therefore rejected, on the basis that there wasn't a lot of information. And the intention of the amendment is not to oppose this, but in some ways to facilitate it. Because with a clear understanding of somebody like the ASO or a similar large organisation coming to the Town Hall, understanding completely what they require in terms of office space, storage, the location of those areas, whether they might be on that floor, in Eagle Chambers or wherever, would actually facilitate, I think, the cooperation of the Chamber in guiding a proposal such as this through. The Adelaide Symphony Orchestra, and indeed other music organisations in the city, do have a tough time of it. It is very difficult for them to find suitable premises, and it's particularly difficult for them to find premises that provide the acoustics that the Adelaide Town Hall does. Even our own festival centre is rejected by many fine music organisations because they don't believe that they can get the same quality of performance from the venue as they can from Adelaide Town Hall. So, look, I ask members to support this in a spirit of positivity to facilitate the location of an organisation, and I express only a personal preference in saying that I'd be just delighted to see the Symphony Orchestra here at the Town Hall, and to be able to hear the orchestra rehearsing throughout the building would be just a joy on a regular basis, not just as occasionally it occurs now.
If I may make a comment to that, Councillor Martin, because I think it would be an absolute joy. I was party to some of those conversations a few years back. Part of the problem was the availability of the venue at other times to any other organisation. So if the ASO was to base themselves here, it would be for the ASO and pretty much no one else, because they have over 80 full-time musicians, they have a large administration, and of course they're in rehearsal all the time. So I think from memory that was the main reason that we couldn't accommodate them, and that was their decision, because I think there were many of us that would have been very, very happy to see the ASO using this hall because the acoustics are amazing. But there are other organisations such as the ASQ and quartets and the Youth Orchestra. There's lots of other organisations that we could talk to through these discussions. Councillor Snape. Councillor Hyde?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm familiar with some of those discussions that Councillor Martin talks about, because I did broach, well, a number of topics with the ASO directly, and certainly regarding Town Hall's operation, there are some improvements that can be made for bumping in and out for the orchestra and what have you, but those are obviously not what's before us currently. I do think there is a lot of merit to having a diverse range of musical groups that we engage with. And furthermore, I'm actually quite comfortable with the administration, and having spoken to them about the matter, undertaking and engaging those musical companies, and not needing to bring it back to us either, because I think they are the ones that know them best. I've been following their work closely. I am quite comfortable with the direction they're heading, but also because I think it gives these groups, these artistic musical groups, a bit more certainty with who they're actually negotiating with and who they're talking to. I mean, are they talking to 11 councillors and a Lord Mayor, or are they talking with the CEO and the Associate Director of Community and Culture? And I think the administration are far more equipped to have those discussions, and in fact, obviously, they're already somewhat matured discussions, as it were. So while I think the intent of Councillor Martin is quite noble, I won't be supporting this. I urge members not to support this, and that we return to the original recommendation.
Members, if not, I'll go back to Councillor Martin to sum up.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's always a blow when the person calling the shots shoots down your proposal.
Councillor Martin, that's enough, thank you.
Well,
Councillor Martin, it's disrespectful, you know it is, and I would ask you to refrain from that.
Repeating what was published in the advertisement.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Martin.
And what did you ask me again? Remind me? No, I'm serious, I've forgotten.
I'm sorry, your memory is troubling you this evening.
Yeah.
If you can refrain from being disrespectful to other members in the chamber, I would appreciate that.
Well, Lord Mayor, I refute that because it wasn't disrespectful.
Thank you, Councillor Martin, if you'd finish summing
Lord
up.
Mayor, look, I am sorry this is going down. I am concerned to see that we facilitate an organisation such as the ASO in this town hall, and in such a way that we can allow other performance to occur, not only performance but public meetings, and ensure that we provide adequate facilities. That is the bit that will, in my view, inhibit the basing of any so-called home company in town hall. And it is, in my view, a decision, and should be a conscious decision, of this chamber to say, yes, we will allocate this much space in the knowledge that we are agreeing to this. Under the circumstances, that would seem to me to be the best way of ensuring this occurs, rather than it falling over because the administration can't negotiate beyond the town hall with certainty. But anyway, look, I accept that this will not be adopted by the dominant group, and I regret it.
Members, if we could go to the vote, those in favour, those against, that is lost. Division has been called.
Those members voting in favour of the motion, please rise.
Councillor Moran, Councillor Mackie, Councillor Snape, Councillor Donovan and Councillor Martin.
Members, that takes us back to the original motion. Councillor Hyde, removing the original motion. Seconded by Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Councillor Hyde, did you wish to speak?
Only to say that I look forward to the many and diverse groups that I hope will come through the Adelaide Town Hall, and just reflecting on the previous discussion regarding musical and social infrastructure within the City of Adelaide. I think noting that while we do have one of the best auditoria out of anywhere in the Southern Hemisphere right above us, I do think that the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra deserves a concert hall. I think they're up there as one of the best symphony orchestras in Australia, and I think they deserve a dedicated, purpose-built space where they can practice as much as they're required to, and as much as their craft demands, and a space that can actually fit enough people in it to showcase. And that, while we do have a wonderful auditorium here, that is actually not the Adelaide Town Hall. And I am a friend of the ASO, I do greatly enjoy them. But that is where I think we should be as a city advocating for, regarding being a city of music and what have you. That's the sort of infrastructure we need. Where Town Hall can fit into it is providing for the groups, some of which you outlined, Lord Mayor, and giving a home to some of them. So I think this is an excellent initiative, and I want to thank the administration for bringing it to us.
Thank you. Councillor Abrahimzadeh, did you wish to speak?
Is that all right? Thank you.
Members? So I've got Councillor Mackie, then Councillor Ho, then Councillor Moran.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. While I'm disappointed that the amendment was not supported, it doesn't detract from my support for this motion. Over 20 years ago, I think it would have been in the late 1990s, and some of this is captured in the report, the council went for the maximised revenue driver for Town Hall, and it became a function centre par excellence, it's fair to say, and that has excluded us optimising the very fine acoustic that the Adelaide Town Hall Auditorium represents, particularly for chamber and pre-romantic repertoire. Don't want to sound like a knob in terms of professing knowledge more knowledge than I do, but I remember this very clearly from my arts essay honcho days, and however, Adelaide is far, far more than our very fine symphony orchestra, as wonderful as they are and as deserving as they are of a dedicated home, with a capacity of around 1,800, which is larger than our auditorium can accommodate. So chukkers for getting this report together, and delighted to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Mackie. Councillor Hyde.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd also like to thank the administrations for, redo the Adelaide Town Hall operational model. Because I think back in June, we had a robust discussion about this, and thanks all the members by putting their contribution. Finally, the previous caterer has withdrawn from their contract, and now community groups from different cultural backgrounds are able to run their community events in Adelaide Town Hall, which is long overdue. Right? I really look forward to see many other community groups with different cultural backgrounds to run their events here. Thank you.
Let's hope that we can actually do Chinese New Year here, which I know has been one of the stumbling blocks to them celebrating in the Town Hall. Councillor Moran.
Yes, I can understand the desire to have a more diverse attractor. However, one cannot claim to be a friend of the ASO and say they deserve a bigger, better hall. They haven't got a bigger, better hall. We're all they've got. And I cannot support this, having supported the previous iteration. In a perfect world, of course, this would be fine. But it's not a perfect world, and we should the ASO is the spine of our music, our cultural, our music industry. And all the rest are lovely, but they are subsets of what our beautiful symphony orchestra is. So I say this is a bad move. It's in the wrong directions. I think its heart's in the right place, but the reality is that we've cut out the ASO. If you are indeed a friend of the ASO, you would have voted for the first amendment, first motion. This is a travesty.
If I may, just as a point of correction, we haven't cut out the ASO, Councillor Moran. They perform here quite regularly, as they do at the Festival Theatre, though that's not open at the moment.
I'd really appreciate you not commentating on in my opinion, we have cut out the ASO and diminished the role here. I have read the report, but in voting against the previous motion, we have cut out the ASO, and I would prefer you not to interrupt my debate.
I didn't interrupt, Councillor Moran. I waited until you'd finished, and I just simply stated the fact that we have not cut out the ASO because they perform here quite regularly.
In my opinion, in voting against the first one, and you can hear the debate following on, they deserve a better venue, we are cutting out the ASO.
Members, are there any other speakers? Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just everyone has spoken, I think most of us have spoken in regards to this one, but just to reiterate, the Adelaide Town Hall is here for the people. We're here to accommodate a diverse range of people that can use it and should use it. It is should be not segregated just to one group of people. The Town Hall belongs to everyone, and I think that's the message that we should be sending to the people of Adelaide and to all groups and all users who would like to use it and perform here. As you mentioned, Lord Mayor, we're not cutting out the ASO. They are still more than welcome to be here and play here and enjoy our facilities.
Members, if not, I'll go back to the move to sum up. Councillor Hyde. To the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried.
Those members voting in favour of the motion, please rise.
Councillor Mackie, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Khera, Councillor Ho, Councillor Snape, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Donovan, Councillor Hyde and Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Thank you, members. We're on to 10.7, which is the Sapole horse adjustment in Benithan Park, Tulliwadley. And I look for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Hyde. I look for a seconder.
Sorry, I have an alternative.
An alternate?
Not circulated earlier. I just want to remove 212. That was just the clause asking Sapole, or telling Sapole to reduce the number of horses.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Moran, are you seconding? Sorry, I'm just checking. Councillor Moran, you were seconding? Yes? Thank you. Wasn't quite sure. That's why your hand was up. Just checking.
Well, while I appreciate obviously the discussion at APLA, Lord Mayor, and the work that we've done with Sapole to investigate whether they are able to reduce the number of horses, I think it's been made abundantly clear to us that the number of horses registered there at Benithan Park cannot go down, lest we will all be less safe if that were to happen. We know that the police horses do fantastic work, and Sapole as their handlers take good care of them, and they in turn take good care of us, keeping our precincts safe, whether it's Hindley Street. Obviously they trot down to the East End sometimes, they trot down to Whitmore Square as well, keeping an eye on things and making sure the community are safe. As was highlighted, while we in Adelaide have been very fortunate to not have any messy protests regarding the deprivation of rights that we've seen over the last 18 months, other states have not been so lucky, and riot police and horses as well have needed to be used in order to restore order and restore peace. Now, while South Australians are a wonderful people, and I don't think we'll see that happen here, you never quite know when these animals will have to be deployed. So it's integral for the safety of our citizens and our ratepayers and the broader community that we allow the police to use and to keep the horses that are currently registered there in place.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Councillor Moran?
Yes, I completely agree with everything the mover said. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Snape?
Just noting that Councillor Hyde referred to deprivation of rights, and what I think you meant to say is common sense health measures.
I'm sorry, I didn't actually hear what you said, Councillor Snape.
Councillor Hyde referred to deprivation of rights, and in his speech, I think he was confused and might have meant common sense health measures.
I'm sorry. Okay, so any other speakers? Councillor Martin.
First of all, Lord Mayor, I'd like to raise a point of order. At the conclusion of the debate regarding the operations of the Town Hall, Councillor Hyde said in a very audible voice to Councillor Abrahimzadeh, "I thought we voted to remove drink." Now,
sorry, Councillor, we are talking.
I'm raising a point of order, Lord.
Sorry, we've moved past that one.
This is important.
I'm sorry, Councillor Martin, but we have moved past that.
No, I'm not talking about that issue. I'm talking about behaviour in the chamber.
We are talking about Sapole horse adjustment, which is before you.
Well, Lord Mayor, if a member of this council says something offensive in the chamber in an audible voice, then it's incumbent on other councillors to stand up and call it out.
And a point of order, Lord Mayor, this is not a point of order.
I'm sorry, but there's...
He said, "I thought we voted to remove drink."
So you're saying somebody drunk in this?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I heard.
Through you, Lord Mayor. Through you, Lord Mayor, in relation to the point of order.
Excuse me, sorry, Lord Mayor. I mean, are we going to keep on...
Deputy Lord Mayor, if I could allow
Sure, I've just been
governance
called
to
stupid.
respond.
So does that mean that I should be called a code of conduct?
Members, please. We are looking at item 10.7. If you have something that you are worried about that is not a point of order, we have passed that item, and your recourse is a code of conduct.
I understand, Lord Mayor, that the administration you invited to speak,
I
they
did.
were speaking. I would like to hear.
Through you, Lord Mayor, in my view, your call on this was correct because from my perspective, whatever may or may not have been said was clearly not audible by the rest of the auditorium or the rest of the meeting, and it would more appropriately be ought to be raised after the meeting with you if there is an issue, and then that can be looked into.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Sorry,
I will do that, Lord Mayor.
If you could, that would be great. And are you speaking to item 10.7?
Yes, I'm asking questions primarily of the administration. Understanding that the government can overrule any decision of the City of Adelaide in relation to parklands, has the administration had a conversation with or canvassed this issue with either the Minister for Police or the Minister responsible for the parklands?
Through you, CEO.
Thank you, through the chair. I would just say first up that normally administration wouldn't approach ministers. We normally leave that to the elected body, and so that would be a Lord Mayoral discussion. We primarily work at the CE and officer level with our counterparts. Mr. McCready, would you like to confirm whether you or anyone else involved in this has met with those two ministers, please?
Thank you, CEO. Through you, presiding member, I have had no contact with those ministers in relation to this matter, and as the CEO has indicated, we've been working with the appropriate personnel within SAPOL to resolve these issues.
Okay, and if I might ask, how much of this area that we're discussing now, in relation to the SAPOL usage of the area, how much of that is going to be lost anyway under the state plan for a car park on the Women's and Children's Hospital?
Through the CEO.
Thank you, through the chair. We have flagged within this report that the future proposed location may have a bearing on this site. There was some square meterage mooted at a couple of briefings. I'm not sure whether that's been confirmed or whether we would require more detailed design to understand the impact on this site. Mr. McCready, do you have any more further information since the code amendment was released?
Through you, CEO, and through you, presiding member, as yet it's undetermined in regards to the impact, and we're waiting for more information, but we've clearly highlighted the impacts to SAPOL as an operation by the code amendment going through, so we're just awaiting to see final detailed drawings to come through to us so we can talk to council.
Okay, thank you.
Members? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Hyde to sum up.
Only in response to the rather peculiar interjection, not that one. Sorry, Lord Mayor. Common sense health measures can also be a deprivation of rights.
So, can we please talk to
No, Lord Mayor, but that was.
Councillor Hyde, can we please talk to the item before us?
Yes, and police forces can be used to enforce and make sure the public are abiding by their deprivation of rights, which may otherwise be common sense health measures. One thing can be a deprivation of rights while also being a common sense health measure. Thank you.
Is that your summation? Thank you. Members, to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried.
Division.
Those members voting in favour of the motion, please rise.
Councillor Mackie, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Khera, Councillor Ho, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Donovan, Councillor Hyde and Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Thank you, members. That takes us to 10.9, which
Apologies,
is...
Lord Mayor. I was voting against the amendment, not the original motion. I missed my...
That was the alternate motion, so thank you. Sorry. So, members, that takes us to 10.9, which is the City of Adelaide Annual Report 2020 to 2021. Look for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Hyde, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Moran. Councillor Hyde, did you wish to speak to it? Councillor Moran, did you wish to speak to it? Members? If not, back to Councillor Hyde to sum up. Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Members, that takes us to item 10.12 on tonight's agenda, which is the report on financial results 2020 to 2021. And I'll look for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Hyde, and a seconder, Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Councillor Hyde, did you wish to speak to it? Councillor Abrahimzadeh? Thank you. Members? If not, I'll go back to the move to sum up. Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Members, that takes us to exclusion of the public. There are two items tonight presented with a request for consideration in confidence. Each item will require a motion, decision and order the exclusion of the public to enable consideration in confidence. I would look to the floor for a mover and a seconder for the motion to include for the item 12.1.1 Contract Award Adelaide Wi-Fi. Thank you, Councillor Knoll. Seconded, Councillor Hyde. Members, any discussion? Councillor Martin?
Yeah, look, Lord Mayor, I think this matter ought to be heard in public. It concerns the delivery of a service that is much valued in the community, and the decision tonight will affect many users. It's just another of those things at Council which are heard in secret when indeed they ought to be discussed in public, so that ratepayers can see why those decisions have been made and why they affect them in the way they do. It is, in my view, a matter of regret that we are not doing that.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Snape?
I was elected on the principle of fighting back against secrecy, and so I will have to, in principle, object to this.
Members, if not, back to Councillor Knoll to sum up. Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. I also need a move and a seconder for the motion to exclude the public for the item 12.1.2, which is Audit and Risk Committee appointment of independent members. And I look for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Seconded, Councillor Knoll. Councillor Hyde, did you wish to speak to it? Yep. Councillor Knoll. Members? If not, back to the mover to sum up. Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried.
Absolutely.
A division's been called. Those members in favour of the motion, please rise.
Councillor Mackie, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Khera, Councillor Ho, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Donovan and Councillor Hyde.
Members of the public and staff, thank you for the attendance for the first part of the meeting. Those not associated with items 12.1.1 and 12.1.2, if I could ask you now to please leave the council chamber. The streaming will now cease while council considers these items on the agenda, and the meeting will reopen and streaming recommence at the conclusion of the last confidential item. So, thank you. 8:10, please. Thank you, members. That's right. so I'll just go to item 13, which is the Lord Mayor's report. Members, the display suite and apartment at 88 O'Connell is now complete and open to the public. It does look stunning, and its completion is another important milestone as the work on the project continues at pace. I announced the opening at a joint press conference with Commercial and General Executive Chairman Jamie McClurg on Wednesday the 6th of October. Journalists were invited to go through the apartment ahead of the official opening. The launch event on Thursday the 7th of October was well attended, and thanks to members who joined me there. Sales are officially underway with 20% already sold, many to local residents. There's tremendous excitement about this $250 million project, which will bring nearly 400 new residents and create 500 jobs once complete. For the first time since 1975, Council celebrated Flower Day on the 23rd of September. More than 3,000 flowers sourced from CBD florists were given out at locations including Rundle Mall, Adelaide Town Hall, the Hutt Street Library, O'Connell Street, Melbourne Street, Hurdle Square, the Adelaide train station, and North Adelaide, Gilly Street and Sturt Street primary schools. It was a lovely event that brought joy and colour to the city. Through the Adelaide Economic Development Agency, we launched WellFest, which is celebrating health and wellbeing in the City of Adelaide during October with community events and activities, including yoga, cooking demonstrations and gardening. AIDA also brought Vogue Festival back to Rundle Mall for 3 fashion-filled days between October 8th and 10th. I spoke at the launch at 2KW alongside AIDA Chair Nikki Govan and Vogue editor Edwina McCann, who appeared via video link as she is unable to join us in person due to still being in lockdown in Sydney. We are so fortunate to have some of the world's best designers in Adelaide, including Paul Vasilevs of Polo Sebastian and Christina Tridente of Couture Love Madness. And I had the pleasure of attending Christina's show on the 8th of October at Mayfair to celebrate her 10th anniversary, and also to view Paul Vasilevs' collection on display in Rundle Mall. The Deputy Lord Mayor joined me for the Maya Fashion Parade on Saturday 9th of October in support of Adelaide's incredible fashion and retail industries, and it was full of people enjoying retail therapy. Throughout the month we've had FOMO Fridays, #GoToTown, and Reignite Adelaide bring street parties, music and festivities to the city. The campaigns are designed to attract more people to the CBD and North Adelaide and support city traders, particularly on a Friday, a day when people are still choosing to work from home. I continue to receive very positive feedback from city businesses about Council's pop-up parklets, which are transforming underutilised parking bays into outdoor dining areas. Businesses including Chicken and Pig, Abbott's and Kenny, A Mother's Milk and Bean and Leaf Cafe have now added new outdoor dining areas created, and this is boosting capacity, improving the amenity, brightening the streets and increasing the greening. On the 15th, the wrong one with me. On the 15th of September, I attended the Australian of the Year breakfast featuring the extraordinary Grace Tame, and on the 16th of September I had the privilege of welcoming new Australian citizens at a citizenship ceremony, followed by the reception in the Queen Adelaide Room to mark Australian Citizenship Day. I gave an address on leadership at the AmCham Academy, attended the Grote Street Traders AGM and spoke at the North Adelaide Precinct AGM on the 29th of September to provide an update on the work Council has completed during the past year, including COVID-19 recovery support for businesses, Light Up O'Connell and 88 O'Connell. Last but not least, on September the 26th, I bowled the first bowl of the season at the Adelaide Bowling Club in my role as patron for their opening day. Sadly, it was an abysmal attempt at lawn bowling, but they were happy that I was there nonetheless. I'd also like to take this opportunity to once again acknowledge the outstanding financial turnaround we've achieved. An operating deficit from 36.4 million down to 6.9 million, our borrowings down from 90.3 million down to 34.7 million. I'd like to congratulate my fellow members, the CEO, the COO and the finance team. There's a lot of hard work has gone into this, and I very much look forward to a break-even result in 2022. Thank you, members. If I could have someone move to accept my report. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Seconded, Councillor Mackie. Members, those in favour? Thank you. That is carried. 14.1 on the agenda is reports from council members. Could I have someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Knoll. Seconded, Deputy Lord Mayor. Members, any comments? If not, I'll just move to sum up. Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Thank you. That is carried. Members, with your leave, questions on notice will be taken as read, and of course the answers to these questions are published on our website. If I could see a show of hands from the chamber. Thank you. Thank you, members. That takes us to questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Snape.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is in regard to the Rainbow Walk upgrade in Light Square. Just for a quick brief background, for those that weren't aware, last Thursday I was walking along the Rainbow Walk and unfortunately there was some vandalism.
I'm sorry, Councillor Snape, questions are just questions.
Sorry, I want to the opportunity to thank Clinton's team as well for the quick removal of
Thank you, but questions.
But my question is in regards to a motion moved by my predecessor, former Councillor Robert Sims, moved in 15th of December 2020, item 17.5, quote, that the Pride Walk on Light Square be updated to include the State Parliament's removal of the gay panic offence and the passage of legislation to clear the records of people convicted of historical homosexual offences. And question 2 points. One, how are we progressing on that motion? And will it be ready in time for the Feast Festival in 3 weeks' time? And two, is there any scope within this for a bit of a general touch-up of the paintwork, considering it's been quite a while since it was... it's looking a bit faded.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Snape. CEO?
Thank you, through the presiding member. Certainly aware of the motion and the progress that's been made to date. I'll ask Mr Devenish to provide you with an update, and I can assure Council that we are looking to try and make sure that the work associated with that amendment, with that previous motion is delivered in time for Feast Festival, but Clinton will give you a more fulsome answer. Thank you, Mr Devenish.
Thank you, CEO, through the Chair. Thanks, Councillor, for your question. I can confirm that we've made really good progress. We have been awaiting feedback from the community and key stakeholder group in terms of the wording, just to ensure that we were meeting the needs of the community. We've received that feedback in the last couple of days, and plans are afoot now to get the stencils made up and get that rewording installed in the public art. So that is well and truly progressed and will be ready by the 6th of November as requested.
Thank you.
And to answer your second question, I will come back to you if that's okay, Councillor, in regards to the painting. The painting of the mural is quite a task, and I wouldn't want to make a commitment to repainting and touch-ups if we weren't able to achieve that. So I'll come back to you with a response on that.
Thank you, Director Devenish. Are there any further questions without notice? Thank you, Councillor Hyde.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. At the previous meeting of Council, I asked if there was any further information the administration could garner from reports of a death in the southern parklands around the Princess Elizabeth Playground. Unless it was in an e-news, I haven't seen anything, so I'll just...
Thank you. I'll just follow up.
Restate that question.
CEO?
Sorry, through the presiding member, no further information has been received.
Through Lord Mayor, could the administration confirm if they've asked SAPOL about the matter? Or...
CEO?
Thank you. Through the presiding member, at the time I was liaising with SAPOL and provided the information that SAPOL provided me at the time. If there's anything further, I can certainly double check with SAPOL whether they feel it's appropriate to share any further information with regards to that matter. I will take an undertaking tonight to do that.
Thank you.
Members, Councillor Ho.
Thank you. Just a question to the admin about the atmosphere lighting in Chinatown on Winter Street, because the lights have not been working properly for some time, either not turning on or not change colours. I just wondering whether or not the administration are aware of this, and if yes, when can it be fixed?
Thank you, Councillor High. And CEO.
Thank you through the presiding member, and certainly across the various work has been undertaken in that location with regards to obviously the upgrade of the street, but in relation to those lights. Mr Devonish, if you'd like to again give a more fulsome answer, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Through the chair, we are aware of that level of inquiry, Councillor, and we have investigated the lighting. My sources tell me that the lighting is performing as designed. However, I'll take your concerns on board tonight and undertake another assessment of the lights and provide a response.
Thank you. Members, if not, we'll move on to 17, which is motions on notice. 17.1, which is Deputy Lord Mayor Flower Day annual event. And look for a seconder. Councillor Hyde, are you seconding? Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As you mentioned in your report, it was an event that was very well received by the public. I'm told the advertiser was inundated with such a great response when they published the article, and so too it was on social media and also personal emails that I received from the public. I was overwhelmed with the amount of response I got, people thanking for this day to be returned back to the City of Adelaide. It's such a positive feel-good, it was such a positive feel-good day, and I have to congratulate the administration for putting together this day in such a short amount of time, 6 weeks. It was fantastic. They did an excellent job, and I can only imagine what the day will be like if this motion is successful, and that we prepare for this in over 12 months, because as I can understand, our nursery can prepare more seedlings for this day for the public to really enjoy receiving the pots that we had outside the Adelaide City Council that we were giving away, the flowers that they were seeing, and just the joy on their faces just to be handed a stem, especially except a flower, sorry, just because it is a gesture, and it was just an act of kindness, and it truly lifted their spirits, and it was spoken about consistently, especially with the school kids as well. So and talking about the school children, they even did a wonderful full flower day, a beautiful display outside the school. I think it was Sturt Street. Yeah. Which I don't know if you all saw that. The children really got on board, and it was a really fantastic, heartwarming day for the city.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Councillor Hine?
Only to express my heartfelt thanks to the administration and to the Deputy Lord Mayor for bringing this motion. Certainly it's so touching to hear such positive feedback, particularly from the southwestern corner of the city, where of course Sturt Street's primary participated, but overwhelmingly as well from my own community in the southeast corner. So much positive feedback. It really did lift people's spirits. I think after a little bit of a tough trot for the last couple of years that we've had, I think it was an immense thing for the administration to pull together in record time, so well received by the community at large, and I really want to thank again yourself, Lord Mayor, and the Deputy Lord Mayor, and the administration for pulling it together.
Thank you. Councillor Mackie?
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I will acknowledge that given the very short lead time, I was a little bit of a flower day cynic, but I do recognise that there has been a joy factor that it has contributed. What I wanted to propose, and happy for this to either just be taken on board by our administration or Councillor Kouros, Deputy Lord Mayor, if you are happy to consider an additional item to the motion, that Council explores sponsorship opportunities for future events.
I believe the council administration were already doing that, but I'm happy to put that in the motion if that's what you prefer.
Look, I'm comfortable if that is the case, that it doesn't need to.
We can put it in so then it's
I'm happy
clear.
as you want to vary it. I'm quite happy for you to do that.
I'll look to you seconded. Yes, great. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Mackey, Councillor Abraham today. I've got your hand. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, flower power brought back some smiles to the city, didn't it? I too would like to thank and acknowledge the hard work of Deputy Lord Mayor, yourself, Lord Mayor, and of course our wonderful administration for springing into action. I do have one quick question, Lord Mayor, and that is I don't necessarily want to get into get stuck in the weeds, but in terms of there was no pun intended with that one. In terms of procuring for Flower Day for the future, are we able to utilise smaller businesses, smaller florists, or how do we go about, I guess, getting these flowers?
CEO.
Thank you through the presiding member. I probably would need to take that on notice. I'm under the procurement policy that Council endorsed recently. We do have a buy local provision. I would need to go back and check with the team what the procurement process was this time around, but our new policy does require us to make sure that it's a local approach that is undertaken.
Just want to thank the CEO for that response. The only reason I asked that question, Lord Mayor, was I had a small florist that approached me. They loved the idea and they wanted to be involved in future events, and so that's why I thought I'd just bring that question to the chamber.
Excellent. Councillor Snow.
Thank you, and I just want to commend Deputy Lord Mayor and the administration and Lord Mayor as well for the wonderful day. I also think we pulled it off. We pulled it off in a short time, which is great. I just want to touch on something that Councillor Abraham today just did and expand slightly. It's my belief, I don't know if this is correct or not, but we only actually used one florist, and that might be because of a short lead-up time. So there was some concern amongst some of the florists in the city that they obviously didn't have much sales that day. So I would like to add another amendment with leave for the mover and seconder. So an option 5, which simply says that council identify all of the florists within the city of Adelaide and source the flowers equitably from across those businesses. That's all.
So we've actually, the governance advice is that is too prescriptive. If you'd like an undertaking from the administration through the procurement policy to work with a number of procurement, then we can do that. But the advice is that's too prescriptive. So I'll go to the mover and seconder to accept that, and I'm happy to get some advice for you, Councillor.
Could I change to perhaps multiple florists within the city of Adelaide?
I perhaps help Councillor Snape to understand that some of the flowers were donated that were handed out. It's actually I would accept, because it's so broad, that maybe just leaving that with administration to undertake and broaden it to support the florists, because they actually can give them ideas of how to support promotional deals during that time. I don't know. Does that
might come through sponsorship as well. Your advice, Nick?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The issue with the way that this particular paragraph is framed is that it is so prescriptive prescriptive that it may not actually be practicable for the administration to do it. I think it would be better if it was phrased more broadly, as the CEO suggests, which is in the context of our procurement policy, and that the focus be on using City of Adelaide florists to the greatest extent possible, something along those lines.
I'd be happy with that. My only concern is for local businesses who are trying to sell those products not being able to make a sale on that day, and that can be, I think, balanced by the fact that maybe we've used them to procure some of those flowers in the first place. But I fully support the motion. I'll support it no matter what. I just want the spirits of what I'm getting across.
I think this might capture it, Councillor Snape, as it's like utilise City of Adelaide florists to source flowers through our procurement process. And again, I'll go to the Deputy Lord Mayor. You good with that? Thank you. Any further comments? Just before I go back to Councillor Donovan.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Just wondering, the $60,000 that was spent on the program, did that incorporate or include wage costs, or was that just on expenditure?
Sia.
Thank you, through the presiding member. That would not include resource costs. That would just be the expenditure of delivering the event.
And the notes that were provided in response to the motion mentioned the positive response, the anecdotal feedback, and the positive media responses. Was it possible, and I can imagine possibly not because of the short time frame, was it possible at all to measure things like whether there was an increase in retail expenditure or foot traffic or other, beyond the sort of anecdotal feedback, any other measures from that expense?
Sia.
Thank you, through the presiding member. No, as Council's aware, we did have 6 weeks to implement and deliver this event. I think what might be helpful if this motion is supported is that we work with members during the budget process to understand what it is they're trying to achieve, whether it is enhancing wellbeing, and if so, can we look to measures within our wellbeing index to increase certain aspects in there? Is it about supporting local business? And if so, if that's the focus, that could be quite a different event. If it's about supporting and showcasing the great work that our horticulture team does, that could be quite a different event. Or is it all of the above plus more? So I think there's an opportunity through the budget process, if this is supported, to better understand what members are trying to achieve and then develop some appropriate measures for the future.
Thank you. And just to add my thanks to administration, I think what was pulled off in a short time frame was fantastic, and certainly the feedback was lovely. There was a lot of positivity around the community, which was great. I am not going to support this motion, however, because I think noting $60,000 plus, I would guess at least another $20,000 of wage costs. So, at a ballpark figure, probably around $80,000 on a one-day event that we're not really sure of the intent of, we're not really sure of the outcomes of. We don't, yes, it's a nice feel-good factor, always great, but I think that money could be more planned in terms of its usage, so I won't be supporting this.
Thank you. Before I go to the Deputy Summer, I do actually want to thank everybody that was involved. Particularly, I'd like to thank the horticulture team, who did a fantastic job getting behind this very, very quickly, and also Kathy Triposa from our City Activation team, who was the coordinator for this. As you have said, it was brought together in a very short period of time. I did do a reasonable amount of media on this as well, and particularly the gardening program were absolutely all over this, and they think that there's huge potential for the growers and the things like the Rose Society, etc., to get behind something like this if it was an annual event. I do in particular want to thank the Deputy Lord Mayor for being an absolute champion of this, and it did, I'd love to have measured the joy on that day, because it was all over the place, and particularly at the primary schools. That was probably my favourite thing of the whole day, when those children were able to give a flower through the teachers to their caregivers at the end of the day. On that note, I'll go to the Deputy Lord Mayor to sum up.
Sorry, just before, just have a very quick question.
Quick question?
Very quick question. Just touching on those points. How does the administration measure joy? How can we measure and quantify joy? Is there an index?
Do you know what it feels like, Councillor Hyde?
Just for Councillor Donovan's benefit, if she wants data, then
see
what data?
Through the wellbeing dashboard.
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor, there's various ways to measure joy and happiness and well-being and the impact that all those elements have on people, and whether it's through activity or through receiving a flower or through walking or through various other means. We have a very comprehensive dashboard, and joy can be extrapolated certainly from that data.
Deputy Lord Mayor. Oh, Councillor Hyde.
Just a question. Lord Mayor, well, I'm not sure whether or not joy can be quantified, but may I ask the administration roughly how many people actually participate into this event? Do you have the number?
Acting, sorry, not even acting anymore, you're actually it. CEO, apologies. sorry. CEO.
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor. I don't have the numbers of people that did participate, but judging from one of the heaviest footfall areas, I think it's 60,000 people that travel a day and cross Peary Street through our breezeway. The amount of people that had the opportunity to certainly take part in the event just through there alone was huge. So that already started at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. Tom, do you know if we did have numbers of people that...
Through you, CEO, and through you, presiding member, the only numbers that we captured on the day, apologies, but again, 6 weeks to understand what we need to capture, was just the amount of hits that we had in reach. 40,000 people were interested in the event, and we're very responsive, but that doesn't talk to the physical people within the city. But we will capture that as we progress.
Deputy Lord Mayor.
Wow, 40,000 people were interested in the event. We can't really put a price on happiness, joy and well-being. We have, as elected members, we have an obligation to our community, and we are obligated to ensure that we bring an experience into the city, and this delivered it all. It couldn't fault it, not one bit, and in such a short space of time, the job that they did was fantastic. And in answer to some of the questions or some of the concerns that some councillors had in regard to businesses, a florist on Melbourne Street particularly chose that day to have the opening of their florist, and she was inundated with people coming in and buying flowers because she used the promotion for that day for people to come into the store and buy flowers, and they did. And I had a lot of other florists, because it was such a short leeway to the event. They would have loved to, if they had more notice, they would love to have done the same thing. So I think that now that we are giving people the heads up that we're going to be doing it every year, I think there's an opportunity to explore sponsorships, opportunity for businesses to set up promotionals or ideas for people to come in and buy flowers that day, and it certainly could be an event, which I would envisage it would be an event that would be very well received for people to come in at that day and just enjoy the vibrancy and the experience that this event offers.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. To the vote, those in favour, those against, that is carried. Councillor Knoll, which way are you voting? In favour, thank you. Members, that takes us to... Councillor Hyde has called a division. Did you call the division or not?
Yes. A division's been called. All members in favour of the motion, please rise.
Councillor Mackie, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Kerr, Councillor Ho, Councillor Snape, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Hyde and Councillor Abraham-Zadeh.
Members, that takes us to 17.2. Councillor Ho, motion on notice liquor licensing.
Well, thank you, Lord Mayor. I move the motion as print and I look for a seconder.
So, I have a seconder in Councillor Hyde.
Thank you, Lord Mayor and members. Well, I think this motion is actually quite straightforward. About 3 weeks ago, I firstly approached by one of our ratepayer who actually showed me the invoices they received for the liquor license fee. One is before the reform, and the other one was after the reform. The one before the reform was $1,900. Guess what? The one after the reform was just slightly over $30,000. So that's literally about 10 times more. All right? And then, I couldn't believe it. And I started to approach some other people who I know also run a licensed venue. And the numbers are very similar. The fee actually increased from somewhere around 8 to 12 times more. So it actually makes it very difficult for those people to run their business in the city. Due to the restriction, as we all know, most of the venues are unable to operate with their full capacity, and it makes it just not worse to open for some weekdays. And indeed, quite a lot of those venues only open 2 nights a week. And if looking at this, the income have reduced so much, and they also need to pay so much higher fee for the license. I think this is just make it very undoable. It doesn't make any sense to me, though. On one hand, we are working together with the state government, try to encourage more people go back to the city to enjoy. On the other hand, the government charges so much more to our ratepayers, and which actually make it even more difficult for them to run their own business and for people who actually come to the city, consume and enjoy their life. Lord Mayor, a few months ago, it was a pleasure to join you to walk around our city after midnight together with some members, the CEO, as well as the police officer. I think we all love the vitality in our city after midnight, all right? And we like to support our ratepayers who are able to keep running their business in our city and keep encouraging young people coming to the city to enjoy their nightlife. So really, like members, please support this motion. We need to make the government aware our ratepayers' concern, and we need to urge the government to add more factors into the calculation formula, which will make the fee be more accurate and fair. Thank you.
Councillor Hyde, did you wish to speak?
Only to reiterate that I think it's very timely that we review this risk-based fee structure that was brought in. It was brought in, obviously, and we opposed it at the time, and I opposed it at the time. It was brought in, however, pre-pandemic, and the industries that it affects have taken an absolute battering in that time. It's funny, I suppose, in the last 2 years we talk about risk a heck of a lot more than we did before, and I don't see risk-based licensing brought to any other industries, and in actual fact the fees that they're paying are still very, very high, but the risk of course is very, very low because a lot of them are so restricted, deprived of the opportunity to operate as they normally would, that there is no risk at all. Because there's very little dancing, there's very little drinking, there's very little capacity whatsoever. But I think, generally speaking, it's definitely time that we've reviewed or advocated for a review of this fee structure, especially if we want to see the nightlife return to our city once we're all vaccinated and once restrictions lift.
Thank you. Councillor Snape?
So I do work in hospitality, but not in a management section. So I'm about to ask a few questions before I decide how I'm going to vote on this. Could someone, possibly administration, explain what exactly risk-based licensing is and what it entails? Is that possible?
What risk-based licensing is? CEO?
Thank you, through the presiding member. It would have been previous term of council, the then Attorney General undertook a wholesale review of liquor licensing across the state. The City of Adelaide provided input into that. The concept of risk-based licensing was in relation to the impact that some venues do have on things like hospitals, on things like policing. More recently, the licensing fee associated with the different licences made available under that reform also then undertook a review, and new fees were then put in place. And my understanding is that the Attorney General and Commissioner at CBS structured the fees where low risk was low fee and high risk attracted a higher fee. So that's what it means.
Does that risk index also include such things as previous criminal records and like health violations, things such as that?
Theo?
Thank you, through the presiding member. I'm not sure. Perhaps I could arrange a briefing. We have relationships obviously with CBS. If you'd like, I could arrange for someone from CBS to meet with you to explain. Licensing is actually pretty complex, and perhaps it might be an opportunity for you to hear from them how they came about this model and what it entails.
Thank you. So by its definition, a less risky business would pay less fees, and a more risky business would pay more fees.
Thank you. Through the presiding member, I'm making an assumption there. I'm not comfortable making that assumption, but it was certainly from memory around that concept. But it was also in relation to operating hours. So, as members will be aware, we have a lockout here at 2 a.m, and the higher fee was certainly associated with opening after lockout as well. So it's quite complex, and there's lots of different variables within that.
So the later the venue stays open, the higher the fees are, essentially. Members, are there any other questions, comments? If not, I will go back to the mover to sum up. Councillor Hyde? Members to the vote, those in favour? Those against? That is carried. 17.3 we have dealt with. That takes us to 17.4. Deputy Lord Mayor, Main Streets Revitalisation Fund. And I see your mover waving. Your seconder, sorry.
I would take this as read. It's fairly lengthy. I would assume that everyone has read that unless they want me to read it out. But basically, the reason why Councillor Hyde was very eager to be a seconder is because we both feel very passionately about our main streets, and we've got master planning happening at the parade. We've got master planning happening at Henley Square. We've got Stirling, the main street there. They're currently in have completed a master plan or in the process. We've got Kinwilliam Road that is completed. That was in the making for a while, and we're left with our main streets. And we are in a capital city, and we should be looking at our city as a whole. And we want the city to be an experience, and we want our businesses to thrive. And to do so, we need to have the proper planning in place for these main streets. With all this, it brings proper planning and proper master planning brings increased occupancy rates. Value goes up, it increases foot traffic to the main streets there. It benefits residents, gives community pride, it gives social and cultural activities to be taken in those streets. So we know that there is so much benefit in making our main streets optimum to the consumer. So in doing so, it takes a bit of planning. And And what I'm asking for administration is to create a fund in which we can do these works, and also we need to define what our main streets are, which are our main streets, what we want our city to look like, and we're really looking at this in a way, in a holistic approach as a citywide. Rundle Street is quite found its feet, but maybe there is more aspects that we need to look there. But we need to really assess this as to the city overall. So I'm asking administration to really look at this for future and future planning for our streets, and I would like our councillors to go on, to support this.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Councillor Hyde. Members? Councillor Hyde.
This is an excellent motion. It truly is. It truly is, and it encapsulates a lot of what many councillors, regardless of their views on other matters, are pushing for at the moment. I think. I think the City of Adelaide, obviously, we've undergone a lot of reform and restructuring over the last couple of years, much needed. Prior to that, there were substantial public realm enhancements in Rundle Mall, Gawler Place and Victoria Square, as well as other areas such as Hindley Street West and obviously Rundle Street as well, taken care of, just generally speaking as well. But it is time for us to take care of each of our precincts. Adelaide, whether it's actually the CBD and North Adelaide or the greater metropolitan area, we are just a collection of villages and main streets, and that's you can see that in how our towns and their boundaries are still shaped. You can see that in how people are very passionate about shopping local, and you can see that in how municipal governments are investing and reinvesting in their main streets. And the Deputy Lord Mayor rattled off quite a few. Of course, there are others that we're seeing as well, whether it's Murray Bridge, Mount Barker, I think Whyalla was in there as well, Normanville, Victor Harbour, so many, McLaren Vale, and so many around the metropolitan area as well, Jetty Road Liddell, Jetty Road Brighton. We know that Semaphores Main Street is becoming more and more popular. So we need to make sure we can no longer bank on the fact that we are a capital city. We're in a hopefully, touch wood, a post-pandemic world soon. We can no longer just bank on the fact that we're a capital city. It's time that we stopped trading just on that, because I don't think we can cash that one anymore, and that we really sat down and thought about our commercial precincts. And as the motion speaks to, commercial, cultural and community hubs, and that's very much what our main streets are. And I want to thank the administration and you, Lord Mayor, as well, for the roundtables that you've been holding, gathering a huge amount of and a wealth of information on what they could look like, what they should look like, but also what they should feel like as well, which is the very important thing, because there are multiple facets to this, and you can have the nicest street in the world, but if no one cares to walk on it to go and visit something, then there's no point. We've now done a lot of that work, and you've led a lot of that work, Lord Mayor, and the teams have led that work as well, at least on 3 of the streets, so we understand, or have a much better understanding of what's there currently and what the community adjacent to it would like to see. There's obviously some more consultation work to be done. If I could just have 20 more seconds.
Members, thank you.
There's a little bit more consultation work to be done, but this motion is about, at the end of the day, the bones of our streets are good, but we do need to give them a little bit of a polish. I do think traders and what have you are crying out for some investment, possibly co-investment as well, depending on the projects, investment and reinvestment in these streets. And I think it will really boost business confidence if they see that we've got a plan for them. And I think people in the greater metropolitan, even regional South Australia and interstate, would be really delighted to come to Adelaide in a few years' time and see that we are a collection of beautiful precincts, each with a distinct feel and a distinct look and a different offering.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Members? Just before I go back to the Deputy Lord Mayor to sum up, I do actually commend you for bringing this motion. We've done a lot of work on the main streets. It has been a real focus of this council to reinvigorate and reinvest back into our main streets. It's not just, as Councillor Hyde said, about business confidence, it's also about our residents rediscovering those main streets and all that we have to offer. I thank you for bringing that in. It's a really important next step in this journey that we're taking. So, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Yes, Lord Mayor, Main Streets is important to the urban framework across the city. They are, you can look at the city as the CBD as the heart and the Main Streets as the veins and keeps our city pumping. So it's really great to bring that focus back to our Main Streets. COVID has taught us a lot of things. We will bring our local community back to their main streets, and that's what we're looking for, to create that vibrancy across the board, across the city holistically. Thank you.
Members, to the vote, those in favour, those against. Could I have that recorded as unanimous, please? Members, that takes us to 17.5. Councillor Abrahimzadeh, adaptive reuse trial.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll move the motion as printed and seek a seconder.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Lord Mayor, can I start with a question, please? Given the administration comment, I just want to make sure that my motion, in particular point 4, won't need anything specific around the AIDA report that is coming to Council. So I just want to make sure that we have the opportunity to look at those findings from AIDA before, any sort of trials or options for a trial are discussed.
CEO.
Thank you, through the presiding member. Yes, that's correct. So the admin comment makes it clear that there is currently some work underway that AIDA is leading in relation to looking at this issue. And the admin comment is suggesting that we report back once we had visibility of that work.
Thank you, CEO. Lord Mayor, I'm sure I'm not the first elected member to move a motion of this nature. I've had conversations with previous elected members. I've had a conversation earlier today with Councillor Mackey about this and how 20 or so years ago, similar sort of motions were also moved by elected members. But I think the important thing here is that we try and look at some of these dilapidated buildings in a different way, in an innovative way, if I can put it that way. And I guess for us, at the end of the day, if those barriers and challenges are highlighted, then we as the elected body can see what's ahead of us and whether if there is any way around those barriers and challenges to maybe try something. Now, some of the trials might end up failing, but nevertheless, I think if we don't give it a go, we won't know whether if something can be successful or not. So I do commend this motion to the Chamber, and I thank the members for the support in advance.
Councillor Hyde.
Well, the best way to preserve our heritage, and particularly our built heritage, Lord Mayor, is to ensure that it remains relevant and it remains used. That's what I see the end product of this motion being, after, of course, we make it as easy as possible for people to adaptively reuse heritage buildings, and I think that can be done in a tasteful way that preserves the character of such buildings. I do think it's an area that, particularly with commercial buildings, Lord Mayor, there can be a lot of obstructions, and when you look at the sort of the hard and fast numbers of it, a lot of commercial heritage buildings, it doesn't actually make sense for them to use them as such. And I suppose to the more cynical ones of us, it might actually make sense to some property owners to just let it run down and hope it falls down, so they no longer need to deal with the heritage asset. I think that's not a very good way to look at it, and wherever we can assist in making it as easy as possible for these buildings to be repurposed, but while maintaining their immense character and beauty. Wherever we can make that easier, we should be, and that's what I see this motion as doing.
Thank you, members. If not, back to Councillor Abraham today to sum up. Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. I might have that recorded as unanimous as well. Dunn Street Car Park, 17.6. Deputy Lord Mayor.
I have a seconder, Councillor Hyde. Sorry. I'll take this as read. I take that everyone has read the motion, and I felt compelled to actually bring this in because of a comment that Councillor Martin made at a council meeting that we were selling Dunn Street car park. And when it was very clear with administration that it was a site that we're investigating for redevelopment of Dunn Street car park to support housing outcomes and including consideration of key work, affordable housing together with the precinct car parking. I understood that was the intent, but I felt compelled that being a North Ward councillor that I had to make this clearer for the public to understand that this has been identified on our assets, strategic assets, and that we will be looking at possibly enhancing the asset and not selling it. So I would want to make this clear in a motion to my community because it did send them in a little bit of a worried state. Thank you.
Councillor Hyde.
Well, Lord Mayor, I'm of the view, and I've always been of the view, that the best way to handle this asset is to see an appropriate development on this site, but one that preserves, and actually I think we should very seriously be looking at increasing the number of car parks available, and if it were possible, for example, Lord Mayor, to maintain a level of parking at grade, to undercroft a level of parking under that, and then to gain the requisite yield to offset those undercrofting expenses, so that you then get a break even. You have a development, you have more people living in the area, adjacent one of our main streets, you collect more rates off of that, but at the same time you can actually double the level of parking that is available. I maintain that is definitely the best way forward for this site. Certainly preserving it a minimum level as it is very, very important. And I would thank the administration, particularly the CEO, for releasing that decision from confidence. I would only, and this is a constructive comment, I would only say that it does worry some members of the community where they see the decision and the decision is then reported upon, but of course they haven't actually had the benefit of the council's discussion because that recording is still in confidence. So, but this newfound love for transparency from our new CEO is absolutely commendable, and I'm sure we can work through those teething issues to make sure we are as transparent as possible. But just to recap on what we know, Lord Mayor, and following on from our talk about precincts and the importance of supporting them, what we do know is that 85% of all trips that happen within Greater Metropolitan Adelaide every day happen in a car. That's what we know, and I think that's around 415,000 trips every day in Greater Metropolitan Adelaide happen in a car, and that's why you might recall, Lord Mayor, when we were at a Rotary meeting the other day, a member of the community came up to me and said, "Oh, I read about the Dunn Street car park," and that's a person who doesn't actually live in North Adelaide, but they go to one of the gyms there, and it is definitely an issue that people raise, whether you're on the doorstep or on the street. They are concerned about a loss of car parking, and then of course traders are rightly concerned that they will lose customers and lose patronage, and they know that's the case because 85% of all trips that happen when someone's going from point A to point B in Adelaide happen in a motor vehicle. I'm not saying that's right, ethically or morally or what have you, or that is the most efficient, but it is the reality, and that's why we must always be working to preserve and where we can increase the available car parks in the City of Adelaide.
Members? I'll go back to the... Sorry, Councillor Donovan.
Can't help but respond to that one, Lord Mayor. As I'm sure Councillor Hyde well knows, the reason that 85% of trips occur in metropolitan Adelaide is because there's no other safe way to do so. We built a bridge across the River Torrens to get between the train station and the Oval with 0 foot traffic across that area. Once we provided the bridge, however, now tens of thousands of people cross that river. So we know if you build it, they will come. And of course, we know that already 2/3 of trips of people who are coming to the City of Adelaide travel not by car, but by public transport, by bike and on foot. So, of course, I will vote against this, but actually not because of the essential factor of it maintaining or increasing car parking, but because it unnecessarily restricts the possibilities for this site. So the fundamental principle should be that we look to this as a blank slate and we see the possibilities that arise rather than go straight to the end point of providing the same amount of car parking or anything else to do with car parking. Let's first look at it as a blank slate and then consider other factors.
Councillor Snape.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Members, back to Deputy Lord Mayor to sum up.
There's always going to be different views on this in regards to car parking, and there is going to be people that dream, as Councillor Sims once told me, he dreams that he sees no cars in the City of Adelaide. And, you know, everyone has their dreams, but I'm speaking on behalf of my ratepayers, and their dream is to not see this car park removed. They would like it to continue, and in the end, we're not making a decision on it. It is going to be obviously a council decision in then what we're going to do with this site. What I'm merely doing with this motion is pointing out that we do go through this process, reviewing this asset as a council. So you're not making decisions on a car park on it right now. You're making decisions on whether it be residential right now. You're making a decision that we will review this in part of our strategic property review process in which we already have in place. I don't want this to end up being in the media a debate about whether car parking is important or active transport is more important or whatever it is. It's just mainly about an asset where the ratepayers of this, in North Adelaide and the businesses in North Adelaide really want this car park to remain, and I'm just acting on their behalf as a North Ward councillor.
Members, to the vote, those in favour, those against, that is carried. Division has been called.
All members in favour of the motion, please rise.
Councillor Mackie, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Khera, Councillor Ho, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Hyde and Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Thank you. 17.7 has lapsed because Councillor Moran is no longer with us. Members, are there any motions without notice this evening? If not, I will close the meeting. Thank you all for your attendance this evening.